always tried to come up with unhinged openings, but considering how there is truly nothing more unhinged than our topic today, our opening is staying firmly on the hinges. Welcome to the Feminine Bite. We are your hosts, Erin and Emily, and today we are talking about what is undoubtedly the craziest idea ever conceptualized, a game called Immortality.
Dun, dun, dun.
You thought we were dead, but we're not.
We're not.
We just took a long hiatus.
That's what the one said too.
Oh my god. When I saw... Okay, so Emily does this thing where she, takes a video, and then at the end of the year she splices it all together, and she filmed part of this and put it in. Did you see my comment where I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna get eaten?
No, I don't remember that.
They commented. I literally was like, you put the one in your video? Are you crazy?
Oh!
Are you insane?
We're making really interesting content. Emily's just silently going into her Facebook.
While Emily does that, I'm going to give you guys some background on this video game called Immortality, okay? Immortality is an FMV game and FMV stands for full motion video. These are video games that utilize recorded film instead of or in conjunction with animation. You might also hear these referenced as interactive movies, which is a very funny thing to call because video game and interactive movie, those are the same words.
Yeah.
Just in reverse. It's very silly. This style of video game has been around since the 1980s, back in the era of the arcades. If you're a video game history nerd, you'd know the most infamous video game in gaming history is an FMV game. This video game was allegedly so controversial that it ended up being discussed on the Congress floor, and the result of that controversy created the ESRB rating system for video games. So every video game you see, the M for mature, E for everyone, T for teen, that is largely because of the FMV game Night Trap, where Congress discussed it as this, controversial piece of media. And if you want to know how those hearings went, I'm gonna save you the time. You know how Congress is talking about TikTok? Same exact thing.
Fun.
Misunderstanding what it is, because they're like, women are dying and it sexualizes women, and it is the most fucking conservative. The women aren't even in underwear. They're in bathing suits. And the vampire, there's no blood in this game. It's silly. So that's one of the most infamous FMV games. Black Mirror Bandersnatch on Netflix is marketed as an interactive movie, but that's effectively an FMV game. That's one maybe more general audiences know, because that was sort of Netflix's first foray into video games, and now you can play several video games on Netflix, including my favorite game, Oxenfree, you can play on Netflix. You can also play Immortality on Netflix.
I was gonna say.
But if you put in the search engine, most famous FMV video games, the one that's going to come up is the one that really shook the gaming world. If you're really into the gaming sphere, even if you haven't played this game, you tend to know what this one is because it won so many awards. And that is award-winning and critically acclaimed Her Story by Sam Barlow. And if you loved Her Story, I have great news for you, because Immortality was created by none other than Sam Barlow himself. So we are this is a game from what is considered in video game history now one of the greats. However, abandon all hope. Ye who are entering here, beyond this point, not only we will be spoiling everything about Immortality, we will be spoiling it in manic detail. Did you find that Facebook post?
I did.
Where I yelled at you?
Yeah, I did. We've already kind of spoiled it. If you, know context, but...
Shh, it's fine. If this were a novel, that would be foreshadowing. We're just planning the gun. We're big brain. We're gonna cut this part out, and they think we're so smart.
We're just setting the gun down, and all we have to do now is turn off the lights.
Okay. So what is Immortality? So the framed narrative of Immortality is that you are a fan of this actress named Marissa Marcel, who only starred in 3 films, which are all cursed films. Those are films that never made it to publication and are considered lost media. Recently, you've gained access to a disorganized collection of clips of Marissa's 3 movies, including rehearsals, auditions, interviews, behind the scenes, and more. And what we're experiencing, like, as a player thematically, is a window into the way movies are made in the 60s, 70s, and 90s, with a focus on the way women are treated. According to the no-clip documentary on the making of Immortality, Sam Barlow cites inspiration from 1968's Romeo and Juliet. The 2 lead actors, they were teenagers at that film. That's like the one that they show in the English classes.
Yeah.
Romeo is 16, Juliet's 15, and they both had a nudity scene. And we see Romeo's butt, we see Juliet's breast. Neither actor consented, and they had felt pressured into making these scenes. And then I also know that when this film was being shown at festivals, Juliet's actress was not allowed in because of the nudity, and it was her nudity that she couldn't see.
That's wild. That's, ugh.
It's so gross.
Ugh. I hate, like, when you really think of, like, really scummy Hollywood, it just, it, like, sends a shiver down my spine of, like, how slimy things can really get. And you don't think about it because it's, like, we put celebrities up on this pedestal.
Yeah, especially, like, with the stuff that's coming out with Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
And people are heartbroken, and I'm like, I literally couldn't care less because I don't really form parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
A man abusing his power and being a good writer? Oh no.
I am the queen of parasocial relationships, and I still was like, yeah, that's not shocking. Like,
at all.
It's just ridiculous.
I haven't even read any of the details, but, like, I'm just... people are saying that they couldn't make it through the whole article, and that's how you know it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I haven't touched the article.
Yeah.
Is because of how people have been reacting to it, and I'm protecting my peace at this point.
Yeah. And literally, when... at work, when someone asked me about it, I was like, I should have known. That was my ex's favorite author. Oh, yeah. So that's one of his inspirations was the 1968 Romeo and Juliet. So that's one. Another inspiration was the movie St. Joan, which is a retelling of Joan of Arc's story, and it is famous for the director auditioning thousands of girls and picking actress Jean Seberg, whose experience on St. Joan is what we'll see actually a lot of him in the first film that we're going to discuss, Ambrosio. Marissa Marcel, our actress, is picked out of thousands of girls and is a debut actress much like Jean Seberg. And the inspiration for, you know how, like, the director's like, I want to sculpt Marissa. That is how the director of St. Joan felt about Jean Seberg in shaping her to be Joan of Arc. Icky, isn't it?
Icky.
Like, watching the no-clip documentary was kind of upsetting. The segment where Sam Barlow's like, here's all my inspirations, and I'm like, these are real? Ugh. Which, kudos to Sam Barlow, because I mean, like, as women, having a man tell this kind of story can feel tense. Because some men just don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's clear that Sam Barlow was inspired by and was horrified and really wanted to say something about this. He's like one of the... I trust my drink with him at the bar, you know? What's our list of, like, men we trust? My boyfriend.
My boyfriend.
Your boyfriend, Jesse Cox, J. Dream Wooten.
Yeah.
The Economist, and Sam Barlow.
Yeah.
I think I'm putting him on the list of men I trust.
I was gonna say, we were just talking about a man who doesn't get it.
Yeah. There's some men just don't get it. And here's the thing, some women also don't get it. Something I find very interesting, which you'll like, is when I was like, yeah, like, Sam Barlow is really doing a really good job about, like, exploring the way that, like, a woman in this era can try and decenter men. And then it reminded me that, like, that was Olivia Wilde's goal with Don't Worry, Darling, and she fucking failed. She was like, this is a movie about women decentering men and women's pleasure, and it's just a horror film about the way men force women to center them.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's the thing. As a horror film, It's a great horror film as a horror film. Whatever Olivia wanted it to be, bad.
Yeah.
Olivia, sorry, I can't trust my drink with you. At the bar, you didn't make the list. Finally, there are some, like, odds and ends inspirations. There are some very uncomfortable interviews that Immortality makes unambiguous and direct allusions to, which is the interview of Marissa being a minor. That is, like, almost line for line, pulled from a real interview where a real, like, interviewer was like, oh, you have all of this nudity. How old are you, like 15, 16? And she goes, maybe. That's a real interview that they alluded to, which we'll get into more detail. We will get into more detail. Oh, you feel...
I feel an immense amount of dread.
There's also a movie called Clute, which was starred actress Jane Fonda, and the fact that she was in bed with her director, there wasn't this meaningful distinction between the actress and the movie she was starring in, which is gross. Finally, the thing that I'm going to leave you with, which I think is going to characterize how we talk about the rest of this. Sam Barlow says something in the No Clip documentary that's very interesting about the femme fatale character archetype, and I want to reiterate it here. He effectively says that the femme fatale is like the cream of the crop kind of role for female actresses in terms of agency in the eras of movie making that we're looking at. Women could be compelling villains. They are the one who moves the plot forward rather than be subjected to the plot. They get to have witty dialogue and cute outfits and limelight and all of this agency. They get to have more than what, like, old Hollywood was typecasting women. But at the end of the day, the femme fatale's main function is to titillate men. That the early idea of a feminist role in cinema is nothing more than a performance for men to consume.
Funny we mentioned consumption.
You know,
all of my jokes are going to be so repetitive. I'm so sorry. They're just going to be about eating.
This is important, this idea of the femme fatale and the way that it interacts with all of these, because I wrote a quote down from Emily. In Emily's words, Marissa kills someone in every single film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna...
She does.
So we need to keep the idea of the femme fatale archetype in mind, because that is something that Sam Barlow is really discussing about the way that it is designed to titillate men and the way that Marissa tries to take back her agency in how these are being filmed. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about the first movie in this game, which is Ambrosio, and I'm going to have Emily try to describe just the basics of this movie.
Oh, that's great, because actually part of my notes is, like, trying to figure out the movie beats in the correct order. That's wonderful. I did that unintentionally. A young girl and her mother, Antonia and Elvira, move to the city of Madrid, and they join the church.
Yeah.
Effectively. That's where they meet the holy priest, the holiest man in Madrid.
I'm your guy! I'm the holiest man in Madrid!
The holiest man in Madrid.
I feel like
Ambrosio.
it's referencing something where he goes, I'm your man! I'm the holiest man in Madrid! I want to know what that's referencing. It feels so, like, familiar.
Yeah.
It's given, like, Titan from Megamind. I'm the good guy! I saved you!
At some point, we are introduced to a novice monk named Rosario. Rosario is not a man.
Ooh.
And Rosario reveals himself as a woman named Matilda in, this kind of, like, pseudo-confession. He does the whole thing of, like, I have a friend. And then it's like, I don't have a friend, actually. It's been me the whole time.
Ambrosio freaks the fuck out.
Yes, he freaks out. I'm trying to, like, there are some gaps that I couldn't fill. There's, like, this scene where Ambrosio's giving Matilda a flower, and then that's where he gets bit by the spider. Or not the spider, the snake.
Yeah, he gets, like, bit by a snake, and then Rosario sucks out the poison to save him. And
so then Matilda starts dying, and then we get the I'm about to die, I'm gonna die a virgin, fuck me to heaven scene.
Yes, these are all sex films. These are booby movies. These are almost pornography.
So close, so close. Matilda comes back from quote unquote the dead by making, like, a satanic ritual.
Yeah, packed with the devil from the Bible.
And then Ambrosio and Matilda have this, like, weird situationship where they, like, keep sleeping together.
Ambrosio is disgusted because she's no longer a virgin.
Yeah. They have, like, this situationship. Ambrosio, like, confides in Matilda, though, that he has feelings for Antonia. And then Matilda's like, great, well, I got a great solution for you. Meet my guy, Lucifer.
Yeah, and then he's like, they make these plans so that Ambrosio can sleep with Antonia, and it results in Ambrosio killing Antonia's mother because she walks in on him trying to assault.
Like, Matilda gives Ambrosio a Juliet potion.
The Romeo and Juliet, like, inspiration is here.
It's clear.
It's so clear. Despite the fact that this film and the book, because this is actually based off a real book, that book is not a fake book. It is a real book. It's so real that it's considered, like, it's called The Monk. It's considered, like, a foundational novel of gothic horror. Despite that, this book is very French. It's set in Italy, but this is a very French book.
No, it's set in Spain.
Oh, it's set in Spain.
Yeah, it's set in Spain. They filmed it in the game. They filmed it
they filmed it in Italy.
Ambrosio is found out, and is set to trial. I don't know if it's, like, in front of the church or if it's the Inquisition.
I think it's the Inquisition.
Yeah, the Spanish Inquisition, if people were not familiar with the Spanish Inquisition. To basically avoid punishment, Ambrosio sells his soul to the devil from the Bible and casts his soul into hell, where Ambrosio wakes up basically in the desert, which is implied to be hell, right?
It's just like a desert. You don't really know where it is, but I mean...
I thought the implication was that it was hell because Matilda reveals herself as a demon.
I mean, she kind of is like, you're gonna rot here, and this is gonna be a weird thing, but it's kind of, if you've ever played The Witcher 3, the shit that happens in Fyke Isle, there's, like, a girl and she gets poisoned and paralyzed, but she, like, can't move, and so the rats eat her alive. That's basically what happens to Ambrosio, and then she's like, the banks are gonna flood, and then his corpse is gonna get bloated and go downstream, and then his soul's gonna go to Matilda. But I mean, like, the desert, effectively what I think is they're recreating is Jesus and Satan in the desert, except for this time Satan wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, like, the random B-plot is that this woman named Agnes gets pregnant, and then she's excommunicated from the church and then, like, locked in this tomb to have her baby.
Oh my god.
By herself.
My favorite clip, and it's a rehearsal which is so upsetting, is that we mentioned before that the reason why this crypt is important because they're gonna bring Antonia down there because everyone thinks she's dead, and she's basically gonna be held prisoner there so that Antonio can rape her as he sees fit. That's, like, what her thing is, and she tries to run for her life because obviously,
yeah,
and she runs into Agnes, and Agnes is just sitting on the ground, and she says something like, "Is someone here to see the baby?" And she's, like, clutching. But it's a rehearsal, so she's not clutching a real baby, and we have no idea what that's supposed to look like, and it's so haunting.
It's haunting in the rehearsal. I would hate to have seen that in practice.
Yeah, it reminds me, in the game Faith the Unholy Trinity, which is about exorcisms and stuff like that, in the 70s and 80s, there's this figure called the Mother and Her Child, and you see her, and John Ward is like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's like, "Gary loves you." And he's like, "Who's Gary?" And she goes, "Gary is a normal person, just like you and me." And when she looks up, her, like, face starts to fall apart, and then the baby that's in her hands, it, like, turns over and it's like a fucking devil baby. That is what I was picturing when I'm, like, thinking of that scene. Would you like to know what fucking happens to Agnes? Because I read the synopsis of the book on Wikipedia.
The Wikipedia that I'm currently scrolling right now.
Agnes is literally, like, a runaway nun. Like, she wants to marry this other guy, but her mother is, like, her mother had such a terrible birth that her mother promised God that she would send Agnes to the nunnery. if Agnes was delivered safely.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to stop this marriage, they send Agnes to the nunnery, and then eventually her lover finds her, and they have sex because Agnes never wanted to be a nun. Agnes gets found out as pregnant, and so they lock her in the crypt as a punishment. The prioress does. The prioress is a specific leader of a female community. So the prioress could be a mother superior. And when everyone thinks that Agnes is dead, and then somebody tells the lover to bring the Inquisition to investigate the prioress about Agnes's death, and everyone gets so mad that they end up in an angry mob killing the prioress, setting the cathedral on fire, and then rescuing Agnes. Because she's alive, but the baby's dead. So when she's in that scene, like, oh, you've come to see the baby, she's cradling a dead baby. Yeah! It's insane.
Also, there is a real movie adaptation, French adaptation of The Monk.
Yeah, there's so many different adaptations.
There is one. Oh no, there is a lot. Okay. There's a 2011 one. It's French.
The Monk is starting to become my special interest. I'm planning on, actually downloading it and reading it. And we might actually cover it in the podcast because, our podcast is, either we're talking about womanly things or we're giving you the feminine perspective, TM. And I think something that interests me actually a lot is, the way women are treated in history and the way that women acquire, use, and sometimes abuse power and systems inherently set up against them. Mm-hmm. That's, it's just something that fascinates me. And women in pre-modern Europe, oh my god, I love women in pre-modern Europe. So yeah, this book sounds really good. I was just reading the plot, and when Arthur Fisher, who is the director of Ambrosio, is we cut out parts of Agnes, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
The runaway nun? There's, a ghost nun that is actually a real person, and the lover of Agnes accidentally marries the ghost nun, who's secretly actually also a real person? What? These are insane things.
Those are insane things, and what we're focusing on are the demon titties.
Right? I was like, this seduction is good. I mean, I kind of wish that it's considered one book in several parts, and I feel like today, if this were published, it would be published in a duology, but they would be published at the same time. Because their stories overlap, and at the end, they all come together in a very Shakespearean way. I'm pretty sure that it would be considered a comedy because people fall in love and get married at the end, despite the fact that Ambrosio kicks the bucket. But I mean, Ambrosio wasn't a good guy to begin with, but all of the good quote-unquote characters, they make it out. I guess not Antonia. Never mind. Poor Antonia.
I can get the book for $8 on Amazon. Not that we endorse Jeff Bezos on this podcast.
No. So to recap, a woman sneaks into a monastery because she's in love with the preacher, seduces him with her satanic ways, enables him to kill his mother and rape his sister, and then when all is dead and done, tricks him into selling his soul to Satan, and then he gets booted and killed, and Satan gets away. Satan wins.
Well, that's the twist too, is that Antonia is Ambrosio's sister.
Yeah.
And that Elvira is his mother. I totally didn't write that down, I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Yeah. And as well-read individuals, there's so much inspiration here that you can clearly see, this. At some points, this feels like a retelling of Oedipus Rex. But instead of sleeping with his mother and killing his father, he kills his mother and sleeps with his sister. That he's kind of tricked into doing this unknowingly. That feels very very much Oedipus Rex. And then there's also, it feels like there's some inspirations into how some of the characters are named. So Ambrose's name is referencing, or at least it's most likely referencing, Saint Ambrose of the Bees. When Saint Ambrose was a child, his head got swarmed by bees, but he remained unharmed, and people saw this as an act of God and an indication that he would go on to be a great public speaker with honeyed words, and he went on to be a very prolific preacher. So I feel like that there's this clear borrow of King Ambrose, jeez. Ambrose of the Bees, the great orator. Ambrose is specifically, I think it's honey and sugar that makes what ambrosia is. Like, ambrosia comes from honey.
Yeah.
And also, ambrosia is considered the food of the gods in Greek polytheism. So there's a lot of deification of and idolatry of Ambrose, just all in his name, which is great. I love it when names mean shit. That's my favorite thing. Agnes also comes up in some of the history. St. Clair gets mentioned a lot. The two saints that get mentioned is St. Francis of Assisi and St. Clair of Assisi. I think I keep mixing up Spain and Italy because St. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of Italy. St. Francis, he's kind of like one of the big TM saints. When you disconsider like angels and the apostles, like the famous saints, like those are going to be the saints that literally have words in the religion named after them, like St. Francis and the Franciscan nuns.
Yeah.
Or the Franciscan nuns and the Franciscan monks. So that's the monk group that Ambrose heads. And then St. Clair is St. Francis's one of his first followers, and she's a runaway bride, actually. Her parents wanted to get her married, and she was like, no, I'm married to God. Save me, St. Francis. And he does. And then her sister follows her, also does not want to get married. In pre-modern Europe, women they didn't have a lot of options, and we talked about this with Catalina in our episode about Catalina de Eraso, that the nunnery was seen as the second option. So that they could do something besides being a wife, mother, maid. And so St. Clair's sister follows her, and she actually goes under the name of Agnes. And I was like, okay, so I can see where like Matthew Lewis got the name Agnes from. All of these inspirations are coming into each other, and it's really cool and it's really good. Let's start with the audition tapes. Those are the first things that we see.
Yeah.
So we get 3 audition tapes with Penelope, Sophia, and Marissa Marcel. Penelope gets cast as, I think she's just a background extra nun. She's the one who's got the really curly blonde hair. And hers is interesting because they literally, again, this is another reference to Romeo and Juliet, and another reason why I keep fucking mixing everything up, because they filmed that movie in Italy, and it takes place in Italy, and I keep thinking we're in Italy. They ask for Shakespeare. I don't know a lot about auditioning processes, but I do know the bare minimum that you tailor your audition, your stuff to the role that you want.
Yeah.
So it's clear by Penelope's audition when she talks about Romeo and Juliet, I think she's auditioning for Antonia.
Yeah,
but then
100%.
Arthur Fisher, the worst man alive, is like, we've gotten like 30 Juliets today, and you're only the 8th best one.
That line makes me so livid.
It does.
It makes me so livid. And the thing is like, I definitely get, I understand, like, you want to prepare material that makes you stand out.
Yeah.
That's why, like, there's so many, especially in, like, musical theater, like, you know, songs, the 16 bars of songs that you try to avoid because everybody is doing them.
Yeah.
But, so, like, I get that, that, you know, the casting panel is probably, like, so worn down from hearing Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
And, like, also just in general, like, people just are so tired of hearing about Romeo and Juliet. But it's, like, I can't think of, you can make some arguments of other Shakespearean characters, but, like, in the way that Antonia is characterized, Juliet's the closest one.
Yeah, you could maybe do Hero from Much Ado About Nothing, because her whole thing is, I'm the sweet innocent virgin, and then I'm accused of being a whore, and now I have daddy issues. Bianca in The Taming of the Shrew, who is another, like, I think her name's Bianca. I've never read The Taming of the Shrew. I only saw 10 Things I Hate About You.
And now it's gonna bother me because I don't know my Shakespeare as well as I should.
Yeah. But that's another problem, is that, like, when you're asking for Shakespeare, the only people who know a lot about Shakespeare
are fucking nerds.
Are nerds who love Shakespeare. God, I hate Shakespeare. He's not my favorite. Like,
yeah.
I understand that his works are informative, but God, I hate Shakespeare sometimes. I have a love-hate relationship with Shakespeare. Maybe it's because one time I said that Romeo and Juliet was Shakespeare's dumbest play because it's fucking stupid, and my ex screamed at me that I didn't understand it and that I was an idiot. And maybe that's why I don't like Shakespeare.
Hermia from Midsummer Night's Dream, that's what I was thinking. Because then, like, Sophia comes in.
Sophia Morgana. Badass name.
She's so cool. I love Sophia Morgana so much.
Fun fact, Sophia is a biblical name. It means wisdom, and in the Bible, wisdom is personified as a woman named Sophia, and it's interesting considering her character.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, she comes in, and she doesn't prepare Shakespeare. She prepares this, like, it feels like a super American monologue.
Yeah.
And it's like
a femme fatale, and even Arthur Fisher's like, I see that you found out that we're looking for a femme fatale.
Yeah.
Because she smokes a cigarette during it, which I think is a reference to a Romeo and Juliet interview that Sam Barlow mentions in the No Clip documentary, where he's like, yeah, there's this interview where Juliet's actress, who's 16, is smoking. And the interviewer is like, oh, you're smoking, or your parents worry? And she says something along the lines of, like, you know nothing about teenage girls while she's taking a drag. I'm like, I will never be as cool as that fucking woman.
When you look at these tapes, it's like, clearly, Sophia is trying to be Matilda. She fits Matilda really well, especially in comparison to when Marissa Marcel walks in and is talking about this silly little poem about oysters.
Yeah, this, like, children's poem. And the frustrating thing is, like, it feels like it is setting up this idea that they want the actresses that are gonna go out the norm. But I feel like when auditions ask for specific things, isn't it a faux pas?
To go against what they're asking for? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, you're rewarding these women?
That's like going for a job interview and they're like, hey, so, you know, we work in the medical industry. Like, what is your experience? And you're like, oh, I've done none of that.
Yeah.
I've actually maimed people before.
I'm actually a serial killer now that you ask about it. That's why I know about anatomy. I've been cutting into it.
Like, it's just so silly.
It's bizarre.
It's so silly. And I focused, a part of my notes focuses on how, like, I have this, like, theory that Arthur Fisher is trying to corrupt Marissa, who is a minor and young and, like, whatever.
Yeah, there's a literal line of dialogue where he says, I'm trying to make Antonia into a virgin and Marissa into a whore.
Correct. But, like, the reason that he cast Sophia is to use Sophia to corrupt Marissa.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, especially in the scene that you were just talking about, they're, like, trying to choreograph this sex scene, and then Sophia's like, no, we can do it like this so that you can see her tits and her face.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just so clearly is just punishing Sophia for being
experienced.
A sexual woman, and rewarding Marissa for not, and it feels so icky.
Yeah. So Marissa's audition tape, the other weird thing that happens is when she says her age. She's 17 and 8 months. And he says, you know,
the perfect age.
The perfect age. Young enough to be molded, but not old enough to know better than your director. It's very gross. He finishes the poem that Marissa she doesn't read the whole poem, and he finishes it for her, and then he says, "Did you know that oysters are an aphrodisiac?"
Do you have any need for aphrodisiacs?
Arthur's a creep.
Yeah.
It's so gross, the way that Arthur treats, like, the women. And I theorize that Marissa auditioned for Agnes. Because, and now it's time, we're like, let's start. We're about to get into Weird Town. So we'll get into more detail later, because we're gonna have to. There's a ghost called the One. And in these scenes, as you're watching these scenes, because again, this is a video game, so you're watching these scenes, and then it's doing match cuts. So if you click Marissa's face, it's going to take you to another scene from a different part of one of her 3 movies that also has that same face. And you're trying to figure out why all 3 movies didn't get made, what happened to each of the actors, and what happened to Marissa. But in between all of this are these hidden scenes with this woman. And some of them are she is monologuing to us in what is called the void, this black area. And sometimes you are scrubbing through these scenes and the scenes change. And it's like everything resets. And instead of Marissa or another actor, it's usually instead of Marissa, there is this woman. And sometimes she's saying the exact lines of dialogue that Marissa says or whoever says. Sometimes it is the One is saying something different and cryptic to kind of help us understand who the One is and what her goal is as a creature. And sometimes it's just weird. So in Marissa's interview, we have one of these, they're called inverted scenes. When Arthur asks, "How old are you?" she gets so angry and she says, "How old are you?" And she drags him to the interview thing. And she's like, "Oh, like, what are you auditioning with?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't bring anything." And she's like, "Tell me your party trick." She's screaming, "Tell me your party trick." And he's like, "Oh, I say dirty limericks." And he recites one. And at the end, because it's about oysters or something like that, she says, "Oh, did you know that oysters are an aphrodisiac?" Just totally, like, we were totally inverting the power. Mm-hmm. This strange woman.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
It's so fun. She's so angry.
Yeah.
And fun fact, the actress who plays that woman, she's so anxious.
Really?
Yeah. Her interviews, she's just very nervous, and something she says is like, "I never get any cute stuff. I'm always the vampire, the ghost." And she's like, "So, when I got this scene, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this the best that I can." And there's such a great irony in the actress getting typecast as the One, because that's the plot, that Marissa realizes that this is all I'm getting, and I'm going to be the best this that I can be. Mm-hmm. But the actress who does the One is so lovely. She's just a gem. Watching her in the interviews, suddenly, way less scary. She's...
Let's just say that when we first started playing this game, one of the inverted scenes, physically jump scared me. It freaked me out so much.
And these inverted scenes are impossible to fucking get. It's my one complaint about the gameplay, is how hard it is to get those scenes to trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you're just Pavloved into, hearing the cue for it.
And you just want to die.
And you're like, "Oh, God, I know what is here, and I want to, but I don't."
Yeah, you're like, "Can I go home, please?" So those are just the audition tapes. And then we have some table reads of them just rehearsing, and let's talk about Robert. We haven't talked about Robert yet.
I have a note in here, in all caps, that is just... Robert just wants to do his job.
He does.
He just wants to do his job, and everybody around him is being horny.
Yeah, I can understand why the One who, for all intents and purposes, we can understand the One as kind of possessing Marissa. The One and Marissa are kind of the same. Again, we see scenes of Marissa, and in the inverted scenes, the One is in Marissa's place. And then in the monologues, in, like, the void, the one kind of implies that she and Marissa are experiencing the same things at the same time. I can understand why the one would not pull Robert into the other films, because we see other characters from these films show up in the other ones. I can understand why, like, Robert is only in Ambrosio, because Robert is a respectful human being. In the chemistry test between Robert, who plays Ambrosio, and Marissa, they do their chemistry test, and then Arthur Fisher's like, you have to kiss. And Robert is uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's uncomfortable because he doesn't want to kiss Marissa. I think he's uncomfortable on behalf of Marissa because he knows that this is her debut film.
Yeah.
And then they do a little kiss, and then Arthur's like, it says passionate in the script.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Robert wants to kill Arthur Fisher.
Well, then, and he also threatens Robert. He's like, I'm sure that there's 100 other guys that would want to kiss Marissa. And it's just like, it's just an abuse of power at its finest.
And Robert's a sweetheart.
He is.
He's so nice to Marissa. One of the most adorable parts, it's so cute, is that they go up and Marissa just kind of blankly stares at him, and Robert whispers her line to her. And she's like, oh, I forgot, when they have to reset. He's like, no, you're doing great. There's, like, this true sadness that, because as Marissa goes into these other films, I think Santel from Gentleman's Gaming Club words it best, where Marissa is just going from groomer to groomer. She's just getting passed on from one skis ball to the next, and there's no escape. That, like, Robert is almost like that intervention that just couldn't happen.
There's an inverted scene about that. It's one that actually occurs in multiple... So I noticed when I was watching through, like, the, like, smash cut of all of the Ambrosio scenes, that there are some that repeat.
Yeah.
Where is this? I wrote this down. The chain.
Yeah.
The one has this little monologue about how the chain was Arthur Fisher to John Durick to...
And then she adds herself into it.
Yeah.
She's like, I added myself into the chain.
And you can kind of, I mean, not necessarily in Ambrosio, maybe this is spoilers for Minsky.
Yeah.
But I feel like Minsky is where Marissa becomes the one that
the abuser.
Yeah.
That, like, yeah, a huge theme of this, like, you know, we are discussing about the way that women are treated in this era of filmmaking, but, like, it is also about the inescapable abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that Robert really represents, strangely, despite the fact he's playing Ambrosio, the holiest man in Madrid, this terrible man that Robert, I mean, we don't hear Robert's real accent very often, but he's got, like, a Midwestern accent. Where he's like, there's one right where he's like, this will be the accent on the day, okay, Arthur? Arthur. He is such a sweet baby Midwestern boy.
Yeah.
And he cares so much about Marissa's comfort levels and really wants to see her succeed as a debut actress. And he's like the only nice person in the entirety of the filming.
Yeah. There's one scene that, like, I think is really emblematic of it, where it's this... Ironically, it's the scene where Matilda is giving Ambrosio a blowjob.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know, giving notes to Marissa or whatever. And Robert's just like, are we cutting?
Like, oh, yeah.
Like,
it's so funny.
It makes me so happy that he gets so annoyed on Marissa's behalf.
Yeah, especially because it's like, he just, again, as you said, he just wants to do his job. He just wants to film this movie. And everyone is being a fucking problem.
Yeah, everybody's just being...
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing that happens during the table read, which is indicative of the one's possession, which is that Sophia is kind of narrating the stuff, and she's like, Matilda goes down on Ambrosio, and then Arthur Fisher, the worst man, he's like, oh, you're gonna have to explain to Marissa what that is. And Sophia's laughing at Marissa, and she's like, oh, it's when you suck his... And then Marissa cuts her off and says, I know what oral sex is. Mm-hmm. And they're all just kind of laughing at Marissa for being allegedly a dumb virgin. And it's upsetting, because it's like, why are you laughing at her? This is why you hired her.
Yeah.
And, like, we know from the one that Marissa, at the time of the one, and then Marissa came together, that Marissa hadn't even been kissed yet. So Marissa doesn't actually know what a blowjob is.
But the one does.
But the one does, which is why that is a scene where the one is very most present, and where you can see her presence is just that she happens to know what oral sex is, despite the fact that Marissa shouldn't. It's really good storytelling, but it's a frustrating way of Arthur's obsession of making Sophia as Antonia into the virgin, but also trying desperately to make Marissa into a whore. Mm-hmm. It's so uncomfortable. There's another interview with Arthur Fisher and Marissa. Marissa's in her Rosario monk robes, and Arthur's hand is literally
on the back of her neck.
And I was like, is this that fucking scene from Chicago?
Oh, I hated it. I hated it so much.
It's like, Jesus Christ. I feel like that is referencing Chicago in the song they both reached for the gun.
Yes.
What the fuck is her name?
Roxy.
Where Roxy is pretending to be a marionette, and so the lawyer has his hand on her neck, like as if she were a marionette. Or a puppet. It's really good. And I was like, that feels very...
I'm going to see Chicago tomorrow. That's really funny that you say that. It's just...
And then, that's an interview towards the beginning of filming, and then there's another interview at the end where Marissa just sounds fucking insane. Mm-hmm. Where they're like, asking about the nudity, and Marissa says something about, like, they film, and light touches my body, and then it goes onto the film, and then people watch it, and their eyes touch the light, and then it's, like, touching me.
Is that the same scene where they ask Sophia, like, what do you think of the nudity? And she's like, I'm just an innocent Catholic girl.
Yeah!
That's crazy to me. Like,
That's something I've said. Who, me? Innocent Catholic Aaron?
That's why it's, like, honestly, that's one of the scenes that, like, made me more mad than others, because it's, like, it worked on both ends. The grooming worked.
Yeah.
And I just,
It was just, there's also, it's a subtle thing that, Sophia Morgana and Robert have a little affair during this. There are several times where they are kissing on screen, which, honestly... I love that happened, especially because there's the main plot point is that not Rosario, I keep mixing them up. Ambrosio rapes Antonia, so there's a lot of sexual violence between the two characters, and it's really nice to know that almost every time something terrible happens on film, once it's called cut, they're like, oh my god, come kiss me! Oh my gosh, I will...
It's so cute.
It's very good that Sam Barlow is like, yes, that there is a rape scene in this, but like, the storytelling is good that he's like very much emphasizing that there's no actual sexual violence going on.
Yeah.
And we do get a clip of the sexual assault scene, and it's in rehearsal, which, writing-wise, I think was the smartest move for Sam Barlow.
Yes.
Because it's like, I feel like if he had done like the full set, like an actual shooting of the sexual assault scene, I feel like he would be contradicting what he set out to do, in that, like, there's this, like, staged assault that we're supposed to, like, gawk at and, like, find clues in, and it being not even a dress rehearsal, it's, like, a blocking rehearsal, so, like, it's very clearly fake. Their clothes are on, her skirt is, like, clearly over her ass. Like, there's no contact.
I think she's wearing tights, even.
Yeah.
To, like, help. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's, like, it's very clear.
Yeah. And it was just, like, as a writer, I'm like, that was a really smart way of how to do this. Because, like, I had never seen the clip. Because when you watch, the videos about it, they're like, hey, an assault happens, but they don't show what the assault clip looks like. And I'm like, when I was, like, bringing this up to Emily, I had to be like, hey, there's, like, an assault in the first movie, and I don't know what that clip looks like. It could be bad. And then it was that, and I was like, oh my god, thank God.
Yeah.
Rape is really hard to do in media. It's hard, because you are walking a very, very, very fine line of using rape as a means of consumptive entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. This particular clip, it's so fake. It's so obviously fake. And that they love each other, so even when it's all said and done, they're like, oh my god, you did such a good job.
Yeah.
It's good. It's nice. I love it. Robert and Sophia's little romance. It's good. And then in one of the monologues, she's like, I wasn't jealous, but when I kiss Robert, I can taste Sophia. She's like, I just wanted to participate. I think that the one really wanted to have a threesome. I think she did.
Yeah. The one confirmed bisexual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote that down for some reason.
Let's talk about the bad guy.
The bad guy who is so hot.
He's so hot.
Who is so hot. And
oh my
so,
god.
so,
this is
so
why
beautiful.
I cannot be trusted around men, because I see the most manipulative, awful men in media, and I'm like, oh my god, you're so hot. In real life, horrifying. This would be a horrifying person. I would never want to be with him. I don't know why it's fictional. Then I'm like, maybe I'm just in love with the actor, because the actor's actually also really hot, and it might just be that.
Yeah.
So John Jurek is the director of photography for the movie Ambrosio, and he ends up directing the next two films. But for this one, he is just the director of photography, and he comes in like an infection. At the beginning, Arthur Fisher will mention him once or twice. He'll be like, hey John, check the gates. You know, what do you think, John? And sometimes John, we can hear John off screen. Mm-hmm. And then slowly but surely, as the scenes progress, John becomes more and more an active participant in the film. Mm-hmm. And we don't know if this is John being John. Because in the second film, one of the actors says, you are a pervert behind a camera. And that is very true about John Jurek, that he is just a pervert on the other side of the camera. Yeah. But I mean, like, considering who he worked with, like, Arthur Fisher, like, of course Arthur Fisher is going to hire people who are just like him. Like, why are we shocked? But anyways, John slowly, so we don't know if this is just how John has always been, or if the one, in the way that she's interacting with John, is bringing this out about him, and not causing it, but enabling it. Because I don't think the one is really, like, not in Ambrosio, the one isn't really doing anything. Things are happening to her, and by extension, also happening to Marissa, and so I think that, at worst, the one is enabling bad things to happen, but isn't exactly trying to make them happen. Mm. But the first scene that we get of John Jurek, when we actually see him, is, like, in an interview with Marissa, and she's like, there's John Jurek, the director of photography, he paints with light. And we get just, like, a second and a wave. And then, there's this scene with Rosario on the floor, and Ambrosio is on top of her, and I believe this is after Rosario and Matilda. Rosario and Matilda are the same character. If we're interchanging them, Rosario and Matilda are the same. Mm-hmm. She's on the floor, and it's probably because she's been poisoned by the snake. We mentioned that Ambrose gets poisoned, and then Rosario sucks it out, and then gets poisoned herself, because she's a dumbass. So I think this is after she faints. And then Marissa says something like, kiss me. And you can hear Arthur in the background going, no, they don't kiss until Act 16. And then John Jurek says something like, come on, chill out, Arthur, it's sexier here on the floor. And then Ambrose kisses Matilda in that scene, and that's like the first time we really see, like, chronologically, John Jurek interfering with the plot of the movie. Mm-hmm. At the behest of Marissa, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Whereas, like, towards the end of filming, we get this scene.
Oh my god, yes.
You know what I'm talking about? They're, like, Ambrosio and Matilda are... It's another sex scene, surprise, surprise, of them in a specific position, and Marissa is looking directly into the camera.
Yeah.
And Arthur is yelling at her, like, stop looking into the camera, stop it. And then John goes, no, she has to keep doing it, it's hot. And I was just like, I'm uncomfy.
Yeah. Yeah, like, over time, you know, Marissa, she's kind of in the similar vein of the actress for the St. Joan movie. Wasn't a, you know, these are debut actresses with little acting training, and so Marissa isn't a very good actor at the beginning. I can't tell, because I've never been able to tell good acting from bad acting unless it is, like, Tommy Wiseau levels of bad.
Like, if it's overt.
Yeah, like, I can never tell, which is a blessing to me. I think that's God's gift to me, is that I can't really tell when acting is bad, so I get more enjoyment out of movies, because I can never really tell. But I've been told that Marissa is actually badly acting at the beginning. And over time, she gains more confidence and becomes a much better actress. You know, as she's getting more sexual agency, because Arthur's like, I'm gonna turn you into a sex pot, and Marissa's like, good, I'm gonna be the best sex pot I can be.
Yeah.
And as these scenes, you know, where she's looking into the camera, where she's taking more agency, Arthur is progressively getting more and more angry because Marissa is becoming a sexual deviant, but not in the way that Arthur wants it to be. That potentially, again, John Durek's the bad guy, and I don't think that the One made John like that, you know? I think at worst the One is enabling him. And so I feel like it is, you know, Arthur Fisher grooming her, and then also John Durek grooming her, and Marissa is more receptive to John Durek because she fucks John Durek. On set.
Nearly on camera. Because John Durek is like, oh, we need this scene. And I realized that when you look at Ambrosio, you're like, that man looks very Jesus-y. And I think that when they cast Robert and they cast John Durek, I think them looking kind of similar was intentional for specifically the scene where they're fucking on the tomb. Because when he puts his hood up as Ambrose, because John Durek is wearing Ambrose's robe and he puts his hood up, you can't tell that it's not Robert. And so it's like this scene where he's like, we gotta see Matilda take control. This is a very important sex scene for the film. Like, it's gonna be important and significant and yada yada yada. And Marissa's like, you convinced Arthur? And he's like, I'm gonna go straight to Gino, who's the producer. And Marissa's like, oh, you're naughty. And they do a fake sex scene, and Marissa does a terrible, terrible fake orgasm. Yeah.
There's a creepy inverted scene with that one, where it's the One, and I know we've talked about the ghost of the One. The One has a friend. He's a dude, his name is the Other One. He is a much scarier version of the One. The One is like, humanity is great, and I want to participate. The other one is like, humans are fucking stupid and I hate them.
Yeah.
So, you know, with Marissa fucking John Durek, we get this inverted scene, and it's the One fucking the other one, and it's this... I would say that the orgasm is much more realistic. Because she's not like, I'm not gonna make the sounds, but yeah, it's not over the top. It seems more real. Yeah. But it's such a wild fucking scene. And then, we're not done yet with John Durek being John Durek. The final scene that I could think of John Durek's influence, which, one of the funniest, I mean, there are several funny lines in this one. Yeah. Detectives don't have time for kinks. It's such a funny line. We'll get into that at Mitski, but Marissa says something like, it's hard to do this in a dress, Arthur, where they're in the desert, and Marissa is in her dress, she's in her, like, Satan flowery dress, and she's like, oh, I'm Satan, and I'm gonna punish you, and I'm gonna tell you about how you killed your mom and fucked your sister. She's like, it's so hard to do this in a dress, and John Durek is like, let's take it off, and Arthur Fisher in the background is like, no! A naked woman isn't scary! It's so petulant. It's like a baby, like, stomping it, like, stomp, stomp, slam your door. Like, it's so funny the way that Arthur, like, he's so controlling and so obsessive. In one of the rehearsal takes, he's, like, throwing pieces of paper at Marissa so she'll get mad, and then she snaps at Arthur, and he's like, yeah, use that anger. And it's so fucking offensive, and it's like, dude, give her acting lessons. Like, if you wanted this debut actress with no acting experience, like, what are you doing? And ironically, this is Manon Gage's debut role.
Yeah. There it is. And it's her only role.
It's her debut role? No, she's in one other thing. First of all, let's do some pronunciation lessons before we keep talking about Manon Gage. So, with unaccented, it's Manon, right? Say that.
Manon.
Okay. When you pronounce it in French, you're just gracing the last N. Manon.
Manon.
Good. When I was watching the No Clip documentary, there were some people calling her Minot, and only the actress who played the one got it right. Where it's like, no, it's Manon. It's almost like a Y sound, Manon. Like you're just grazing that last N. Just the tip. So Manon Gage. This is her debut role. She did phenomenal. She won a bunch of awards. She's so good. And the way that Manon talks about her experience filming this, the exact opposite of Marissa Marcel, which is so good.
Yes.
So it was so interesting to get, like, a debut actress. And I mean, like, she went to Juilliard, and it's hard to get into Juilliard. Like, she obviously clearly has talent to get into Juilliard.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of where we were at. We were talking about...
And Arthur flinging paper.
Yeah! Okay, yeah. That, like, as time goes on, she gets more confident and starts making decisions, and Arthur hates it, and he is just a child about it.
See, in terms of the paper throwing thing, I was actually gonna disagree with you. I think that's one of the shining moments of Arthur Fisher.
Yeah.
Being a good, like, coach in that sense.
Yeah.
That and only that is very reminiscent of me coaching my speech kids.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to, like, get something out of them.
Yeah.
That, like, they are so hesitant to bring out.
Yeah.
But, like, that's, like, and, like, not in, like, a manipulative way, but, like, when you're talking about, these stories about the human experience as it pertains to, especially, like, social justice, is how speech has kind of shaken out, as a lot of it is about social justice. You're experiencing these things, otherwise you wouldn't be making a piece about this.
Yeah. Or
you're so compelled to make a piece about this because of your moral compass.
Yeah, like, you care and we need to see that.
Yeah. So that's like the only thing where I was like, I'll give you 1 point, Arthur Fisher.
Yeah.
I'll give you a singular point.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'll retract my statement.
I mean, you don't have to retract.
No,
but...
it's good. It reminds me of, you want them to speak with passion. Do you know what the word passion means?
Like dictionary definition?
Like, the etymological origin of the word passion is suffering. It specifically, the word passion actually comes from the Passion of Christ from the Bible, and so that's why is it called the Passion of Christ? It's Christ's suffering. It's just, over time, it just had a new meaning, which is more like dedication and motivation. That's why Palatinus' goddess is named Passion. Is
it really now?
She's the goddess of suffering.
Wow.
And if there's one thing my D&D character Palatinus does, is suffer.
Yes, he does. Yes, he really does. He suffers, and then my D&D character's just like, come on, bro.
Yeah, we're bros.
It's fine. It's fine because we are bros.
Yeah. You gotta make people suffer. That makes sense. Okay. But everything else about Arthur is he's just a kid, and he hates himself. Or not he hates himself, he just hates that it's, like, not his ideas. And you might be wondering, like, how childish is actually Arthur Fisher? He gets so mad that this film is not what he envisioned, that he steals the negatives, and that's why it never gets made.
He steals the negatives?
Yeah.
When is that revealed?
I believe it is revealed in a monologue with the One where she says, the Arthur brought me the negatives he stole. It is, the reason why Ambrosio is a cursed film and never gets made, it's the only one that's not very overt and explicit.
Because I thought that it was, I was under the impression that it was published.
No.
Just isn't that the reason that, like they have the interview and then they're showing, like, clips of Ambrosio was for, like, the press tour?
Yeah, they show that, but it never gets made. The whole, like, narrative of this is that these are, all three of these films are cursed films that never got published and are lost media. All three of them are.
Oh.
But Ambrosius is the only one that's not very explicit, and I did double check this with, like, the wiki and everything like that. That, like, yeah, the assumed assumption why this film doesn't get made is because Arthur stole the negatives. Because he threw a bitch fit over it not being what he wanted it to be. Which is such a stupid hill to die on. Because Arthur as a character is very interesting. The inverted interview of the One doing the audition where Arthur's like, how old are you? And the One goes, how old are you? Arthur brings up that he's on the decline. He's on his way out.
Yeah.
Like, and he can see that, and he's trying to grasp more. And even in one of the One's Void monologues, she mentions also that Arthur was on the decline, that this is kind of a film that is being made, not really because, I mean, maybe Arthur really, really wants it, but, like, at the same time, he's also grasping. And that makes sense in the idea that this is a book adaptation.
Mm-hmm. That
it's not even something that Arthur wrote. It's, like, a classic novel. It would be like Little Women. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just an adaptation of a classic novel.
Well, I could potentially see, like, if Arthur feels like he's out of control of his own movie, like, I could maybe see that being, like, definitely the motivation of him stealing the negatives being, like, you know, I don't want to put my name on it if it's not what I want.
But the thing is like, the scenes that we see that get changed, which all happens because of John Durick. Let's make that clear. That it's John Durick making these changes and John Durick kind of grooming Marissa into this confidence to defy her own director. Like, here's the thing. Should you have a healthy enough relationship with your director that you can have a dialogue about things you're uncomfortable with, things that you think might be better, etc.? Yes. But at the end of the day, I would assume that it's still, without question, that the director gets the final say, with the exception maybe being if you're coerced into doing something you don't want to do, like the actors of Romeo and Juliet. That as long as you're not feeling like you're coerced into something you genuinely feel uncomfortable doing, that you should respect the director's final say, because they're the director and you're not getting paid to direct, you're getting paid to act. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be in control of the movie, you need to go direct your own.
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like there are a lot of actors that end up filming, they create movies, and then sometimes they cast themselves, and it's bad. Sorry, Olivia Wilde, but Don't Worry, Darling. I mean, Don't Worry, Darling is a good bad movie.
Yeah.
Don't Worry, Darling is a great bad movie.
And Bunny is the best part of Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah. And, like Anna Kendrick did one about, like, it's like a biography fiction about, like, a real serial killer who went on a dating show, and she's donating all of the money to, like, women's charities because she wanted to make the film because she's passionate about the story and, like, bringing this to light, and it wasn't about money to her. And that, I'm hearing, is, like, it's, I don't know if it's out yet, but it's, like, lauded to, like, be pretty good, and, like, that's a good way, even though she does still cast herself as, like, the main character, and it's like, come on, Anna. But, you'll see this kind of over and over again of, like, actors who have a long-standing, acting, then they kind of take up a directorial, and sometimes I wonder if it's like, if you want to be in control, you have to direct, but you also want to act. It can just, like, I can understand it. That happened a lot in, like, Criminal Minds, too, which is, again, why I think Criminal Minds... I have a love-hate relationship with Criminal Minds. Like, I love it, but I also really hate it at the same time, because, like, I don't know. I got older, I watched it with my adult brain, and I'm like, wow, this is actually not good as I think it is, and Spencer Reid is a cartoon character. That's not a real man.
Yeah.
We can kind of see this evolution, too, that, like, in the next films, Marissa is she gets director credits in the next films. Like, clearly she wants to have more creative control. And here's the thing, is does Marissa want it, or does the one want it? Because I think the one wants it.
Yeah.
I think the one wants more creative control. I think my bat-crazy theory about the one, right, 'cause she's this ghost that has possessed Marissa. I think in the achievements in this game give you clues. It's kind of understood that each clue, these might be the dialogues of the one talking to us. And if you click on the actress who plays Agnes, the actress who plays Agnes looks like Renee Rapp in her mid-30s.
Yeah.
She does. In the most complimentary way. Gorgeous actress.
Yes.
If you click on her enough, you'll get an achievement that's like, oh, you collected Agnes, and then you'll get this note that says, Agnes was my favorite part of the book. So I think that the one acknowledges that Arthur found her, she didn't find Arthur, because the one says, I did some modeling, and we get one commercial of Marissa Marcel for, like, Heather's soap. So the idea, based on the one's dialogue, is that she did that modeling, and then Arthur Fisher saw her, and then wanted her to come and audition. But I also think that the one showed up because it was a book that she'd already read, and she loved Agnes, and that that's why I think she was auditioning to be Agnes, because, there's a lot of minor characters across all of these films. And I feel like Agnes gets the most in terms of minor characters. Because Ruby, who is the buddy cop in Minsky, she has an achievement too. We didn't get it, and the secret dialogue from the one is that Ruby and Goodman were supposed to be love interests originally in the original script. So that's we get some extra stuff about Ruby.
Oh, that would have been so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which we'll get into why later. But, even then, we hear Ruby's name once in the entirety of, Minsky. It is kind of, undoubtedly Agnes is the most important minor character. And I think part of it is just, the one identifying with Agnes, the runaway bride, forced into a nunnery, forced to sort of play the role of the patriarchal system, probably because of the other one, wanting to be free and to love and to do all of these things. I could see the one really identifying with Agnes, and I could also see her being upset that, Agnes got cut. And also the actress who plays Agnes got so upset that Agnes's role got cut so hard that she didn't come to a table reading.
Yeah.
She was so upset, which rightfully so. Because, here's the thing. Ambrosio's side of the story is good. But Agnes's side is just as. There's, both of these are equally so good. And it's why didn't we... it would be a 6-hour movie if you did both halves. Undeniably. Yeah. And they only keep Agnes in because there's a fire that happens that causes... It either causes Ambrose to get caught or something. This fire, plays a role in Ambrose's side of the story, and I presume that the only reason why Agnes is kept in is simply because of that. That it actually plays a role in Ambrose's story. And maybe because Agnes kind of thematically sets up the themes of Ambrose and Matilda's side of the story, where she is being punished for being with child, and she begs for mercy, and he receives none. And it's Agnes's actress is really good, where she's like, I hope that when you are setting to your trials, like, you have faith, but you've never been put to trial. Your faith has not been tested. And when your faith is being tested, I hope you fail, and remember the way that you failed me. And that's basically setting up the promise that Ambrosio's faith is going to be tested, and he is going to fail, which is exactly what happens. And you can kind of wonder, is like, did she curse him? It's full circle. So which is really good. Like, Agnes, I love Agnes. I'm kind of on the one side. Agnes is kind of my favorite minor character.
We are on the Agnes train.
She's so good. I really want to read The Monk, because I kind of love Agnes. She's so sweet. And, I mean, the baby scene.
I want to pose a question.
Okay.
So, and we could talk about this in literally every other Immortality episode that we do. However many it happens to be.
Yeah. We're just gonna, I'm not even looking at the time. I'm like, we're just gonna talk about this, because this is a weird one. In the inverted scenes, specifically where the one and the other one are interacting with other actors, do we think that the other people that they are interacting with are aware? Like, what is the setting of, like... Because obviously, like, these people are not going, you know... Like, it's not like the one is dragging these people back to, like, recreate the same exact scene. Or, like, in the table read scene where the one is fucking Robert. Oh my god, that one is so funny.
There's no way that it's like, no, we're going back and we're doing this table reading and I'm fucking you on this table. There's no way. So it's like, what do we think the other people in this reality are experiencing?
The one says that she was attracted to film because that's how she understands time. She and the other one, which are called oh my god, what are they called again?
Starts with a P.
Hello.
It's like almost like, I want to say
it's like protean?
Yeah.
Proteans, which is an unpredictable, subtle, and often subconscious flirting signal. So the other one and the one are called proteans. So, and even in the script, because in the No Clip documentary, I got to see pages of the script, and it's just called Protean Marissa.
Oh.
So...
Interesting.
So the one, she says that her understanding of time is a lot like film, the compression. So I think that the one misses stuff, but also doesn't miss stuff. But,
miss stuff like?
Like they're not always there.
Mm.
That everything is compressed. And I think, genuinely, which is why I freaked out when you put the one in your little second post, that she's in the film strips. And that she's editing those film strips, which is why you have to... So in order to get the inverted scenes, you have to scrub backwards in order to trigger them. So you're going... Because in the film, you can rewind and fast forward, so you have to rewind, and if you rewind at the right spot, at the right speed, it's like pleasuring a woman. It's so hard. And...
That's so funny. Crazy comment for this game.
You will trigger these scenes. And so I don't think that, like, that scene, like, that it happened. I feel like that the one is able to, like, edit the scene itself and recreate it.
So we're manipulating time.
Yeah. Either that, or that is what the one is seeing. Right? We have Marissa, and then we have the one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, we're gonna get into real quick the secret about the two of those. We're gonna cover it here, because I don't know how to talk about, like, we're being dodgy, and, you know, going forward, we don't know how to talk about the rest of the film without having to really, like...
This game is dodgy. Let me tell ya.
But, so either that, or it's how the one sees the world.
Mm.
That on everyone else sees what Marissa is seeing. We're seeing the film strip. But what the one is seeing is her fucking John on the reading table. That's what the one is experiencing. Because there are some scenes where the one says the exact same thing as... The original scene is unchanged. There's nothing different except for it's the one talking instead of Marissa or John Durick.
Yeah.
And I think that those are times where they are seeing the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. And that, like, the one is more so speaking than, like, John Durick is speaking. But I don't know. Maybe it's just weird analog horror. And we're thinking too deeply into it. What do you think?
That's all I do.
I know.
That's all I do.
I gotta introduce Emily to more analog horror because...
Oh, please don't. I'm so scared. The first time that we played this game, I could not, like, be alone in my apartment. I was so scared. I was so scared that a woman in a really, really, with a really gelled hairdo was gonna come and haunt me.
I know, like, a horror, like, an analog horror project that doesn't have any jump scares.
I don't know if it's the jump scares that frighten me, or if it's just, like, we're supposed to, like, we're watching this, what is supposed to be a film, on my TV, and then a ghost haunts my TV.
And then you put this in your second video.
I know!
Well, why would you do that?
I don't know. It was a good idea at the time, because that's when we finished the game.
Man.
That's the clip that's in my second, is us finishing the game.
Yeah. Where she says, I'm a part of you now. Yeah, I feel like showing you Petscop would be real fun.
I'm scared.
It's just a video game. Anyways.
It's real people, though.
Petscop isn't an FMV. It's...
Oh, I meant
oh, yeah, this.
They're real people.
Yeah, they're real people.
It's live action. Makes it so much scarier.
Yeah, it does. Because, like, you know, with video games, there's this implication that things could go weird, but when it's an FMV and it's supposed to be real people, it's just so jarring.
It is really weird. It's so weird. It's like the difference between I'm okay with anime gore. Like, I've seen so many crazy things in anime, but, like, in a live action show, you put a needle in somebody and I am quaking.
Yeah. So, we need to talk about these proteans.
Yeah.
And this possession that we've been alluding to. Because it is possession. It's also not possession. So...
Let me say from the start. First of all, we've already spoiled a lot of this game.
Yeah.
This is, like, super big mega spoilers for
this
game.
Yeah.
Second of all, I called it from the very fucking start.
Yeah, Emily did, and I had to play
called it.
I had to play coy and everything.
I feel so smart.
Yeah, Emily showed it to me and I was like, oh wow, really, why do you think that? And I was just like hyping her up and be like just parsing it out of her because I was like, I can't tell her that she's right. I can't tell her that she's right.
I can't tell her. Maybe that'll be my Instagram post, is just a picture of the notes that I took when we first started playing. Because it literally is like, Marissa devoured?
She ate Marissa!
She ate Marissa!
Okay, so we're gonna start. We're gonna do a chronological timeline, but it's not gonna be that chronological because we're gonna have to go back in time much farther than this. But we're gonna have to start in this timeline because that's where it makes sense. So again, I also read the wiki about this, so I have some context of just like what the wiki says. So we begin in World War I. That's right, baby! Archduke Ferdinand, dead!
And the first movie was filmed in, like, 1968, 1969?
Yeah.
Something like that. So we're starting way earlier than the inception of a movie concept.
Yeah. So the One is killed during the Great War. We don't know who the One was. Considering the fact that the One tends to inhibit people who are very powerful, it could be possible that the One was Archduke Ferdinand.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Continue. I've processed that.
And so when the Proteans die, they go into effectively a kind of sleeping period, which is again why they think time is compressed. Mm-hmm. That they lose time every time they die, which implies that they die a lot. And there's like this implication on the wiki that says there might have been more of them at one point, but now the only ones that are left are the One and the other one, which is wild. And you can think of the One and the other one kind of like, you know, we say that they're ghosts. In the scripts, they're called Proteans. They're also storytellers. They want great stories. They want to give humanity great stories. The One wants to participate. She wants to involve herself in humanity's narratives and the stories that humanity creates, versus the other one who is like, all humans are monkeys flinging shit and they can't do anything, and we gave them a great story and they hated it. The other one got one bad Goodreads review and wants to destroy humanity as a result.
Do we want to talk about the Goodreads review?
We'll get there. So World War II happens. And the One wakes up. Again, I kind of think she was Archduke Ferdinand, because he's like the iconic death of World War I. Yeah. I don't really know any other iconic deaths in World War I, because honestly, in American history, we cover World War II way more because the United States are unambiguously the good guys in World War II, until you get to Japan, but we don't need to talk about that. Anyways, she wakes up. It's World War II. The end of World War II. Now, it hasn't ended, but it's ending, and I believe the era is that Germany is still occupying France. That's where we are at the end of World War I. Specifically, how close to the end? I think maybe towards the end of the occupation of France. Marissa Marcel is maimed in a field somewhere. We have no idea the details of this maiming. She could have been sexually assaulted, she could have been beaten, but we know that she has this negative interaction with German soldiers, and it is not difficult to imagine what German soldiers might do to a 17-year-old French girl in the countryside. Mm-hmm. She's dying, and the One is crawling into life. And the One decides to consume Marissa and become Marissa. Because that is how the One operates when they inhibit other bodies. They have to basically get rid of the soul that is there and replace themselves with it. And so Marissa's dead. She's gone. Marissa has been dead since way before the beginning of any of this, and only a few trace memories exist. The One says that she remembers, she says that Marissa, she didn't live a very long life, and so she only has the horrors of, her last few years, which kind of implies that Marissa was potentially in a very dangerous situation at that time, right? There, again, another implication that Marissa was not having a great time with these soldiers. Marissa also has, a brother. This brother, just, that she plays games with. And, sticks, those, sticky things, out in nature that, stick to your, Yeah, the One tells us a story about how Marissa loved to do that with her brother. And that's one of the memories that she has. So there's just, a Mr. Marcel out there. He's probably dead by the time everything rolls around, but it's, there's, a brother who's just missing his sister. Yeah. Which is just, kind of upsetting. So the One... Marissa asks if the One is an angel, and the one does not answer, and then Marissa says she wants to live forever. And all of this is in French. I can barely speak French, but I know enough French. And I confirmed it, obviously, through Google Translate, because, I can be dumb. And so Marissa says, I want to live forever, and the one says, you have to give yourself into me. I have to come into you. And she accepts this, and so the one and the Marissa become one and the same. And it's kind of sad when you think of Marissa's life. It's kind of sad when you think of the one's life. And the one is not the good guy, but she's not the bad guy either. Because, at one hand, it seems so predatory that because the one will take over other people far more selfishly. I mean, she does eventually possess John Durick, so John Durick also likely fucking dead.
Yeah.
But, I don't feel bad about John Durick, because John Durick's the bad guy.
Yeah.
So, sometimes she kind of aggressively takes over people, but Marissa seems like Marissa was already dying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Marissa could have been saved. She was dying in a field. So there's this sort of sympathy that the one has where she's going to fulfill Marissa's dying wish, which is to be immortal. Which is kind of sweet when you think about it. And it's and history will call them best friends. Cannibals. And it's sad, but it's also, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly enough.
It's like a mercy.
Yeah. And something interesting that when I was looking up stuff to talk about today, I'm making sure I'm doing all the religious history correct, because we're gonna get way more into the religious history. Emily was alluding to that, because there's some religious shenanigans going around.
Well, Aaron's gonna drive that more than anything. This is, truly, a comparison of grows up, lives religiously, and never have... I couldn't tell you a single Bible verse off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I know nothing. I know no single thing about religion.
Emily's experience with religion is just what I tell Emily, and I think the only thing Emily could say for fact at the top of her head is that nunneries were feminists for the times. That's what Emily knows.
Yeah. Basically.
And there's lesbians in there.
I know.
Shake, shake, shake.
I know that, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, depending on the denomination, can be different, can be the same.
Yeah, most Christian denominations are Trinitarian. There's very few that are not. The most famous one is the Church of the Latter-day Saints or Mormons.
I didn't even know that was a word, Trinitarian.
It's not... Here's the thing. Christians don't identify themselves with, the term Trinitarian, because most religions believe in the Holy Trinity. That's what it means to be, a Trinitarian Christian. You believe in the Holy Trinity.
Oh, gotcha.
99% of denominations believe that the Holy Trinity is real, which is God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. They are three separate entities. You would not say that God walked on water. You say Jesus walked on water. Mm-hmm. They're not interchangeable that way, but they are all understood as God in different forms. And then there are just some religions that don't believe that, which is Mormonism or the Church of the Latter-day Saints. That's the most popular church that doesn't really believe in the Trinity, but the list is small. 99% are Trinitarians. Don't worry. That's a word that I had to look up.
I was really scared.
No, that's not basic Christian knowledge.
My family is very much of we celebrate Christmas because everybody else is.
Yeah.
We don't we just are celebrating because.
Yeah. So Marissa, as a character, France comes up a lot in all three films. Marissa is French-American. Her actress, Manon Gage. Manon is a very French name. The first time I heard the name Manon was in my French class when we were watching a French film, and the shepherdess was named Manon.
I know that. I know that Manon is a French name.
Yeah. So France keeps coming up, and something that I noticed when I was doing research is that Marissa's backstory is the third of a pattern of women in France who play a role in Catholic canon. So, the first one is Joan of Arc. Jeanne d'Arc, in France, is what she's referred to. And Jeanne d'Arc, she is famously a peasant girl who gets visited by, I think it's Saint Christine. And Saint Christine gives her advice and tells her to go, help France defeat England from the 100 Years' War. And then, as a result, there's a lot of... the death of Jeanne d'Arc is a result of church corruption, and I'm not fully familiar with her story because it can be kind of confusing at certain times about... I get confused about how she ended up on trial. I always get confused. She saved the day, but they put her on trial. I'm not a perfect Catholic, okay, guys? But effectively, she gets put on trial for dressing in men's clothes, and then she says, I will repent, and then they force her to dress in men's clothes, and because of that, she has committed heresy a second time, and she's burned at the stake. And that will be a thing to remember, because fire will play a role in the way that the Proteans exist. Proteans can die and come back, but fire is implied to be something permanent. So if Jeanne d'Arc was a Protean, she died. And she was never coming back. But the thing to remember is that Jeanne d'Arc was a peasant girl who was approached by an agent of heaven, which was Saint Christine. Jeanne d'Arc is the patron saint of France. Now, the patron saint of Paris is Saint Geneviève. I love Geneviève. I told my boyfriend, I was like, I'm gonna be talking about some of my favorite saints, and Emily's gonna give me the evil eyes. She's gonna recognize half these fucking names and things from my D&D character.
And you'd be right. Continue. Feel free.
Saint Geneviève, she, very basics, a peasant girl who defends France from Attila the Hun. That's what she's known for. That she saves Paris from Attila the Hun. It's been a while. I first encountered Saint Geneviève when I had to do a research project for her in my French class, and her whole thing is that she kind of stood on the wall and basically became a do not pass go sign. And then they just didn't breach the walls. For some, whether that, St. Geneviève actually, kind of depends if you're an atheist or not, whatever. Mm-hmm. But, that's her narrative of just, again, we see this idea of the peasant girl being raised into a position of power by God and saves the country. And there is another saint in France. Saint Denis is Saint Denis. I don't know anything about Saint Denis. Mm-hmm. The female saints of France are far more iconic than Saint Denis ever will be. Unfortunately, sorry, Saint Denis. I know you're a martyr, but that's about it. And so it's interesting that in the middle, or at the end of a war, mm-hmm. a peasant girl is approached by an agent of God. And you're going to be wondering, is the one an agent of God? We'll get to that in a second. And she asks, are you an angel? That is in a lot of biblical stories. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things are you an angel? Do not be afraid, for I am an angel of God. Things like that. And that this angel, or this agent of God, gives Marissa a miracle. And that is eternal life. And, unlike Saint Geneviève and Jeanne d'Arc, it's not that Marissa is saving people from World War II. That doesn't happen, right? Because the one isn't really interested in war. Mm-hmm. She's way more interested in culture.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that though it's still interesting, though, that we have this motif of there is a war, there is a peasant girl who is approached by an agent of God, and this war comes to an end. This happens 3 times. Whether Marissa actually ended the war, unlike, with Joan of Arc and Saint Genevieve, there's this implication that they helped those wars end versus Marissa just kind of coming into being around the end of a war.
She was just there.
But the motifs are there, and it was just something I noticed where I'm like, this seems so intentional. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's just so cool. And so, to answer the question, how is the one an agent of God?
Funny story.
So, Ambrosio, a theme around Ambrosio is Mother Mary. Fun fact, the patron saint of America, Mother Mary. I learned that doing my research.
What?
Yeah, America's patron saint is Mother Mary.
Interesting.
Ironic, given, Roe v. Wade.
Ironic, given the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading, fun fact, this is a tangent. I was reading a book recently. I got an advanced reader copy. It's called Poet, Mystic, Widow, Wife. And it covers a bunch of women in pre-modern Europe. And during the pre-modern European era, it was believed that the only way a woman could actually conceive a child is if the woman also orgasmed. And so there is theological scholarship that states that God made Mary come. And, this seems like such a, a very empowering piece of, thought.
Yeah.
It falls apart quickly when it becomes an excuse that rape can't happen. That, that rape is only rape if a woman doesn't get pregnant, because if a woman gets pregnant, she had to have orgasmed, and if she orgasmed, it means she liked it. Because I was like, wow, that's such an interesting way to think about it, and then she brought that up, and I was like, and that's why we can't trust men.
Yeah.
But she literally, the author's there were scholars debating, if God made Mary come. She literally says it just like that. And I'm like, I want that on a t-shirt that just says God made Mary come. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Mother Mary is very important in the plot of Ambrosio. It's a literal plot point that Matilda is so obsessed with Rosario that she approaches an artist and she asks the artist to depict her as Madonna and gift it to Ambrosio. The Madonna is specifically referring to Mother Mary. In a Catholic context, anytime you refer to someone as the Madonna, it is only Mother Mary that they are ever talking about. It's something that has fallen out of parlance, probably because of the actress Madonna, singer Madonna. I don't know what Madonna does. I mix her up with Marilyn Monroe.
Madonna?
I don't know. She did that one song, but that's about it, which is basically like...
The one song?
There's that one song that she does that
What one song are you talking about?
Isn't it the one where it's like a sex song, but it's using religious language?
Like a virgin?
Maybe?
Or like a prayer?
Yeah.
She has many more songs.
I don't fucking
Erin.
know. I don't fucking know.
And then this is where I become the more pop culturally relevant one.
I have never...
We all listen. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Erin's is religion.
Yeah, it's not pop culture. It's truly not.
Madonna? Okay. I'm gonna process that privately. It's what I'm gonna do.
I'm not the only one who mixes it up. I saw a bunch of TikTok posts of people being of mixing them up.
Madonna? I love Madonna. She sings Material Girl.
Okay, yeah, okay. I've heard of Material Girl. Okay.
Yeah. Not the Material Girl, but the we are living in a material world and I am a material. Yeah, that's Madonna.
Okay, yeah. So anyways,
sorry.
Matilda gets painted as the Madonna, which is not Madonna the singer. It is Madonna, Mother Mary. And
I'm really just, like, really thankful that we're not videoing this podcast yet. Because you would just be, like, 5 minutes of me, like, Aaron talking, and then I'm just like, she doesn't know who Madonna is.
I know what that is. We've talked about how if actors have the same names, regardless of if they're men, women, if one of them is white and one of them is black, I will just mix them up.
Yeah.
It's like, it's bad.
I have a little game on my app that's like, oh, we melded these two actors' faces together. You have to guess which actors they are. Let's see what today's is.
Oh my god. I'll tell you guys the two actors that I get mixed up, which is the most egregious, is Jamie Foxx and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Ooh,
and then I get all of the Foxes mixed up too. I'll get Megan Fox, Jamie Foxx, Michael J. Fox. The Fox that stars in Lost, I can't think of his first name. I don't know what his name is. I get all of them mixed up because they're all last names Fox. I'm an idiot, I know this. Anyways, so Mother Mary is an important aspect in Ambrosio. A line that Ambrosio says, which sent Emily to the moon and back, is when he goes, Mother Mary has all of the blessings of the feminine and none of the faults.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yikes!
But, also, Ambrosio wants to fuck Mother Mary.
Yeah.
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 All the time he just wants to fuck Mother Mary. It is, like, very obvious. There's even a scene where, like, Mother Mary comes out of the painting, like, and it's Matilda. It's not like Matilda, like, snuck in and is dressed as Mother Mary, but because Matilda posed for the Madonna picture, she comes out, and it has to look like Matilda, right? And, like, is sexualizing him, and then she puts his fingers in her mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yucky.
Yuck.
So Mother Mary plays an important role, and so does the crucifixion. Because, as we've told you, the Proteans, they possess people. And they show up over and over and over and over and over again. And the one implies that she is both Mother Mary and Jesus Christ. That she died on the cross for us, and she also wept. And this is foreshadowing for later on, that the one acknowledges that she can possess more than one person at the same time, and that it's extremely taxing for her to do it. There's also something that I noticed, that, you know, the other one is implied to have been at the crucifixion, and Emily and I were talking about, you know, who the other one could have been, and we had decided maybe it was Mary Magdalene, the only other person who was both at the crucifixion and at the revelation of Jesus Christ. However, the one in her monologue says that they keep saying that there's two Marys, but there's only ever been one. Now, this could mean two things. One, it could mean that Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, that there was never two of them, and there was only one, and it was probably just Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene didn't actually exist. That's not, like, biblical canon, that is just something that's being interpreted in this sort of, because this is basically a retelling of, like, Jesus Christ. Like, none of this is canonical. The Proteans don't exist. Sorry to burst your bubble. So then that begs the question of then who was the other one, because he witnesses the crucifixion and is also there after the resurrection. And it could maybe potentially mean that he is one of the apostles, which means he could be anyone, I think, except for Judas, because Judas kills himself. Or it could be Judas, because Judas kills himself. I don't know. Or, and I haven't told Emily this, the one is clearly, it's very explicit that she is Mother Mary.
Yeah.
She implies that. There's one scene where where Ambrosio gets so mad at Matilda and his sexual desires and his lust and everything, and he also gets mad at Mother Mary, that he stabs the painting with a knife a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And in an inverted scene, The one is there dressed as Mother Mary, and he tries to stab her, and she goes, "If you want to kill the Mother of God, you need a better weapon." Which is a badass fucking line. Another thing I want on a t-shirt. So again, she really implies herself that she is Mother Mary. The other implication of they keep saying there's two Marys, but there really wasn't ever one. Marissa. The name Marissa is a derivative of Mary. There's only one Mary. There's only the one. I feel like it could also imply that the one is acknowledging that Marissa's dead, because there's only one Mary, because the name Marissa is a derivative of Mary.
So you're gonna cut this if I sound stupid, okay?
Okay.
So what you're saying is Marissa Marcel is also Mary Magdalene?
No.
Or is Mother Mary?
No. So, do you know what I mean when I say a derivative of a name? Let's start
kind
there.
of. Like, it's like...
So you have,
it's like you took a name, switched it up, like what the Mormons do when they change like the spellings of names.
Kind of. It's more like so name derivatives. There's like the host, basically the host name, and then people will either change spellings and things like that depending on country of origin and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the name, Mary is the easiest example, so I guess we'll just go with Mary. So you have the name Mary, right?
Yeah.
In countries like Italy and Spain, it's Maria.
Yeah.
In France, it's Marie. In Ireland, it's Morgan. So Sophia Morgana, her name is also Mary.
Okay.
And I believe Marissa is Welsh. It's either Welsh or it's French. Part of it means that it's from the sea. It's mer. And the reason why, how do we get from the ocean to Mother Mary? In French, the word for ocean is la mer, and the word for mother is mère. It's a homophone?
Something like that.
Yeah, two different spellings, but they sound the same. So that's why we get this sort of overlap of water and motherhood. So Marissa's a derivative. So when I say that, like, the one says there's only one Mary, there's the one Mary who is Mother Mary, because she confirms that she herself is Mother Mary. Marissa is also a Mary because her name means Mary. And the one says there's only one Mary. Marissa is dead. So all that's left is Mother Mary, which is the one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That there is actually no Marissa. And there never was. Because Marissa's dead, there's only one Mary left in there. Everyone says that there's two Marys, Marissa and the one, but there's only one Mary, the one, because Marissa's dead.
Oh.
We're on the same page now.
We're on the same page.
So yeah,
okay.
It could imply that Mary Magdalene didn't exist. There's really no other acknowledgement of the idea of Mary Magdalene not existing except for in those couple of dialogues where she says they keep saying there's two Marys, but there's only one. But we could also interpret it as her inferring to us that Marissa is gone. And both of these are likely... They're both likely candidates, and it's truly up to interpretation. And it's another thing that Sam Barlow does very, very well, where he gives people room to interpret things. Like, I've watched a bunch of videos on Immortality because I really like the game and I love people hearing things, and nobody talks about what role Marissa was actually auditioning for. And, I'm the only one who I know in this sort of circuit of things where I'm like, I think she wanted to be Agnes, There's even listening to other people's interpretations. there is still so much room to interpret, and that's what makes this fun. It's very, like, Don't Worry, Darling, where, you know, I mean, in all fairness, the places where Don't Worry, Darling gives us space to interpret is because Olivia Wilde forgot about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a good reason why there's room for interpretation.
It's never intentional.
No. Or if it is intentional... Okay, here's the thing. Here's a writing tip. I'm gonna ruin all writing for you from henceforth on. Sorry in advance. So, when you are writing something, you have to know what everything is. Every secret you need the answer to. Because if you don't write the answer to it, really clever readers will be able to tell that the writers never came up with an answer. A really good example of this is in Encanto, where they decide to leave it up for an interpretation as to why Mirabel didn't get her gift. You can tell in the writing, they didn't come up with an answer. Because there's no, like, the closest answer people get to is, oh, she wiped her hands on her dress, and that's why. The magic just wore off. And it's like, that's it? That's why? That's cruel. Like, that is so cruel, given the context of how she is punished for not getting that. Like, don't you think they would have figured that out if it was, like, don't you think Abuela would have said, don't wipe off the magic? Don't, like, there's so many other things that, like, it breaks down those answers.
Yeah.
And it's clear that they just didn't want to answer it, and nobody wrote down the answer. Here's the thing. You don't have to answer it for us. Like, they don't actually have to answer why Mirabel doesn't give their gift. But they have to write it down on a sticky note, so that because when you have the answer, you can write around the answer. And in this game, it's clear that Sam Barlow knows everything. He knows all of the answers, and because of that, he's writing around them. Or he did enough work to make it believable. Honestly, I'll never know, because Sam Barlow's not going to answer.
Yeah.
Another good example of this is in Bird Box, actually. Both the movie and the book. You can tell that the author knows exactly what that monster is, and he writes around it without ever giving us any concrete answers. And it's really good because it feels alive versus things like Encanto and things like Cabin at the End of the World, where they think it's so highbrow that, like, oh, some people just don't like works where things are left up into interpretation. It's like, no, you didn't answer. You can tell that you didn't come up with an answer. Like, there's there's a blank spot. It feels censored. It doesn't feel like there's something to figure out. And this game, the attention to detail is immaculate. I've never heard anyone else talk about, like, the Saint Joan, or the Joan of Arc, Saint Genevieve to Marissa connection. And I just stumbled into it last night when I was compiling my notes. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have an excuse to talk about Saint Genevieve and have Emily stare at me really hard. So, like, I love that there's just, there's no answers, and that, like, any answer is plausible. And, like, both of those work. Whether or not, like, I honestly think that No Mary Magdalene doesn't work because Emily and I talked for, like, 30 minutes about trying to figure out who the other one was at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, which was hard because only one of us knows anything about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it's not me.
Yeah. So we like spent a long time because, like, the only other answer maybe was Mary of Bethany. Because there's a third Mary. There's a lot of Marys in that time. I didn't know that.
The only thing I really know about religion is what I learned from Jesus Christ Superstar. I don't listen to Jesus Christ Superstar as much as I should.
I love Jesus Christ Superstar. No surprise that Aaron loves Jesus Christ Superstar, Journey to Bethlehem.
The only thing, the only true memory that I dedicate to Jesus Christ Superstar is I was watching it with my friend, and it was the NBC version with John Legend, and when he, goes up on the cross or whatever, like, the panels of the walls open up and, like, John Legend goes through. And I said out loud, I go, oh, look, it's the Jesus portal. That's the only thing I know.
That's funny.
That's the only thing truly.
I watched the one online where Tim Minchin is Judas, and he's so good at Judas. I kind of love Tim Minchin. He is the composer for Matilda, the musical.
Matilda the musical is nice.
I love Matilda the musical.
It's so cute.
It's so fun. I don't like Ross Dahl's like live action version of it.
Yeah.
Except for the one scene that got advertised the fuck out of on TikTok, which is Revolting Children.
Yeah.
Revolting Children's really good, and the alphabet song is tolerable. Because like they cut out a bunch of context because it's a movie and they don't have enough time. But like it was only listening to that version of the song that I realized that song is spelling out the alphabet.
Yeah, it is.
And I was like, oh, that's so clever.
It's so clever. I really like that, like, we're going into tangent land at this point.
It's fine. We're just recording.
That, like, I don't know really how else to describe it, but the opening song, When I Grow Up, is, like, it feels so reminiscent of childhood.
Yeah.
And that might just be because there's actual children singing it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like something, it sounds like a song that you would sing in music class.
And you know what's something interesting? There's a point now to talk about Matilda.
Ooh!
When Matilda is cast, there are 4 actresses that play Matilda because of regulations. And so, like, when we think about the way that movies are made and the way that children interact, Marissa is a child in the first movie that she is put on this spot and she is told to do things that she doesn't want to do. But, you know, in the modern day, perhaps this is a comfort to readers at home, that, like, in a film or in a Broadway production, they have to cast 4 little girls as Matilda to rotate out because of labor laws that protect those children.
Yes.
And that is, like, a great thing that has happened. Another great thing that has happened in modern film, the Guild for Intimacy Coordinators is only 5 years old. And that's a really good thing.
We stand the intimacy coordinator.
Right? And here's the thing. This game is about 3 fake films, and there are no intimacy coordinators in the fake films. When they were making this game, there was an intimacy coordinator on set.
We love the intimacy coordinator.
Which was a great... it made me feel so great. Another reason, after watching this documentary, loving the way that Sam Barlow wanted to talk about these things and made sure every step of the way that he was not contributing to the problem that he sought to criticize. Mm-hmm. That he got the intimacy coordinator, that he was doing all of these things. And another interesting thing is, here's the thing, FMV games, kind of notorious for terrible acting. That is just a thing about FMV games. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's a video game and it's not, like, a real movie, so there's no rehearsals. Yeah. And the actors, first of all, some of the actors demanded the full scripts, because there are 3 full scripts of each of these fake films. All 3 of those scripts exist, and several actors had requested the scripts versus the ones that they were getting, because they were like, I need to be able to know what the hell is going on. And so he gave them those scripts, and there were no, like, scheduled rehearsals. And these actors were so passionate about this project that they would schedule together, like, little baby rehearsals of just running lines together in the downtime. Now, if this was a big movie production, this would be a red flag, right? Because it's like, dude, you don't have time to schedule a commercial, like, you don't have time to schedule rehearsals? That's shady as hell. This is an indie game made by one guy. And it's awesome that, like, the people that he hired on for this project loved it so much that they were willing to put in that extra time. And also Sam Barlow, he cared about everyone, every step of the way. And they have nothing but love for Sam Barlow. And it was just a great, like, workplace environment for everybody involved. Yeah. Because Sam Barlow, like, clearly was unconcerned at the quality of acting. Like, he got some great actors, some debut actors, some veteran actors, but he wasn't really focused on, like, the acting quality of the movie itself because, you know, this is an FMV game. And that's just, I think it was something that in his head he might have accepted that, like, I'm never gonna get, like, movie-grade acting because that's not what I'm really seeking out to do. And the actors cared enough to want to try and get as close as possible, which they do. This is the best acted FMV game I've ever seen in my life. It's so real that it is so easy to forget that these are not real clips.
Yeah.
Like, that's how good it is, because you have people clearly acting because you know that these are films being made, and then you have, like, behind-the-scenes stuff, and it's like, oh no, all of that behind-the-scenes stuff is also staged.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think about it, and
No.
it feels just so very real. The only scenes that had to be practiced beforehand were all of the sex scenes, because that's just the rules of film.
Mm-hmm.
And so Manon Gage was like, it's kind of awkward when, like, sometimes the first time you're meeting all of these people is when you have to go do a sex scene with them. Because this was also made during COVID, so. But, yeah, the environment is just, again, the exact opposite of what what these films are showing us, which is great. And again, clap for Sam Barlow. He is truly great. And I like other FMV games, like her story is okay in its acting. Truly, it is just one woman. In her story, you're listening to, I think, 6 interviews, and you're, like, typing in keywords to find other clips in the interview that have those keywords. Mm-hmm. And that acting is really great. One of my favorite games. It's called Contradiction. The actors in that game, some people are playing it straight, and others are very cartoonish, and Detective Jenks is very cartoonish, and it's so funny. But it's like, again, I can't really tell when acting is bad, so I think it's all fun and good. Yeah. But, like, I would also say that, like, you know, games like Contradiction and the Shapeshifting Detective and the spin-off from Shapeshifting Detective and also Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker. I know a lot of FMV games. Their acting is pretty solid. In the Shapeshifting Detective, there's, like, this podcast, or this radio show, and the 2 actors who do the radio show are really bad, and then they got a spin-off, and it's also bad, because, like, the one actress, I don't like her acting style, and it's just, like, I'm like, this feels, but Jessie Cox is in that one, and it's like, well, now I gotta love it. Yeah. And then Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker, which I feel like we should play Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker. The acting in that one's great. There's also a hot redhead in that one. I love a hot redhead. Anyways, we have kind of gotten off target. So, the one is Mother Mary. She's also Jesus Christ. The other one witnessed this crucifixion, and so something that gets brought up a bunch of times with the one and the other one arguing with each other. Again, the one loves humanity. She wants to participate in these stories, and the other one thinks we're all shit. And he's mad because, again, I said he got mad because his book got one bad review on Goodreads, and he was like, "Fuck him!" And that book was the Bible. He claims that he basically created The Passion of the Christ, and he and the other one were play actors in it, which, again, maybe he was Judas if they created that story together, because Judas kind of is more of an antagonist than Pontius Pilate is. Pontius Pilate, who is the guy who actually crucifies Jesus. Yeah. So maybe he was actually Judas, but he basically gets mad that, like, people didn't like the resurrection story, quote unquote, which is wrong. Very wrong. That is like, thanks to colonialism, the most famous story in existence.
And he's just like, they're monkeys.
They're monkeys. They hate us. And maybe it's because, obviously, like, post-crucifixion and things like that, Christians were persecuted for a very long time, basically up until, I think it was Constantine. made Rome Christianity, and then, Rome didn't really fall. Rome just became the Catholic Roman Church. Like, where did Rome go? It's the Vatican. That's where all the Rome money is.
Yeah.
They got Rome money?
They got Rome money? Whoa.
So maybe that's why he's like, they hated it, and it's like, dude, you just wait a century. Like, they love it. No, everyone loves this shit. They love this shit so much that they pillaged, raped, murdered, and colonized so many other people, and spoon-fed them this story. Like, I don't know if you know this other one. People fucking love this story. They made a musical about it. It's Jesus Christ Superstar.
Just wait until you meet Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah, that man makes musicals about trains and God.
And cats.
What the fuck is wrong with that man?
Listen, I don't know. He also wrote Bad Cinderella.
Yeah.
And School of Rock. Like, he has, like, a spectrum.
He's very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Also, Emily, here's one of your flowers for your Legos.
You found it, thanks.
Yeah, just like, oh, a flower.
Oh, a flower.
So he's just like, he like rage quits effectively, and the other one...
Does he not know who Donny Osmond is?
Which is, it's so wild, especially because I'm like, Jesus is my favorite guy. Like,
he's my favorite guy.
Catholicism aside, like, I think the Passion of the Christ is interesting. It's like a story, like, of betrayal and regret. I'm Catholic, so I'm not fundamentalist, so I don't take the Bible literally. So if I think of Jesus as a story, which is what the other one wants to think about it, and if you think a little bit about, like the role that Judas plays, it's, like, Judas's role, depending, in Jesus Christ Superstar, Judas is just right, but, like, Jesus Christ Superstar wants to critique modern Christianity through the lens of the Passion of Christ, because Judas's character is, like, they are so focused on getting into heaven that everyone is suffering around them, and Jesus won't treat this fucking seriously, and it's frustrating. So, like, in Jesus Christ Superstar, Judas is just fucking correct. Sorry. Like, he's right. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. But, like, when you think about him as, like, a biblical character, he gives up his closest friend not just for silver, because he sells out Jesus for 40 silver, but it's also because, like, the Romans were persecuting Jews because they wanted to do Jewish holidays, festivals, and things like that, and they wouldn't participate in the Roman festivals. And, like, the Romans did that with every denomination under them. And so Judas's act is kind of an act of self-preservation, of living in a state that's religion wants to destroy him, that, like, he's willing to sell out his friends and his brotherhood and his people in order to do that, and you can kind of interpret him as almost scared. And when you think of Judas as scared, it makes more sense why he kills himself after Jesus Christ is crucified, because the guilt of, I did this to save myself and maybe save my people, and it didn't matter. And when you think of, like, a lot of the line that gets thrown around in a lot of Christianity is, Jesus died for your sins. What sins? That sin. That, like, Judas was terrified of the situation, and then obviously there's a mix of greed and ego. And also the fact that the country, the state, was also causing all of these things to happen. So it's the state's mistakes of treating its people like this, causing Judas to be so scared, and then also make him, because when you're poor, and if you're poor and you're given an out, you're gonna reach that. Think of, like, Mr. Beast in the Squid Game, like, when he remade the fucking Squid Games, and, like, everyone's like, I want to win the money for this and that, Think of, like, the healthcare system. If a mysterious man shows up to you and says, hey, I'll pay for all of your medical expenses if you tell me where your best friend lives, do you really think that you are brave enough to turn that away if you are going to be in millions of dollars of medical debt? Because, when we're right now, because we're not in that situation, we're like, I would never give up my best friend. Yeah. But when you're in it, totally different ball game. It's so again, which is what the Ambrosio film is about, where she says your faith hasn't been tested, and I hope that when it gets tested, you fail because you failed me when I begged you for mercy. And so when you think of Judas like that, and the story, it's that Jesus is dying not just for the sins of, like, the way that the government's... The sin is the way that the government set up people to be terrified and betray each other. That's what Jesus is dying for. Like, he dies for Judas's fear. That causes those mistakes, and then it starts making sense why Judas kills himself. And also, you know, there's also a lot of this dialogue that Judas was fated to be this, that Judas was never going to escape betraying Jesus, and so there's another interpretation that he kills himself because he never had a shot. And honestly, that feels like it's more like an influence from, like, the Greek period. I don't really know for sure, but like, again, I'm not fundamentalist, so I interpret things. And so, like, it makes more sense to me that, like, because the idea of fate, that's very Hellenistic. You know, if we think of, like, Oedipus Rex, Orpheus and Eurydice, Odysseus, things like that Judas is fated to. And it also kind of, like, alleviates Judas's guilt, which I don't want to do, which is why I, like, you know, I don't like to take away free will, because the whole point of religion or Christianity is kind of basically about getting free will. But anyways, long tangent of just, like, and then the other one is, like, no, everybody hated it. Everybody hated my story. Nobody liked it. Guys! And everybody sucks now because everybody hated it. Wham, wham, my parents are dead. And it's just like, dude. And, like, you know, with the one, she's manipulative, especially towards John Derek, even if I think...
No, humanity's great. We made 2 of everything.
2 of everything, which is kind of I mean, all of these films are great. Like, let's be real, like, there's so much good in all of these films. I wish that all of these films existed, which is why I'm, like, really excited, actually, that Ambrosio is a book adaptation, because I can actually, like, read the book, versus Minsky and 2 of Everything, which is, like... I looked online for you. I was hoping I could get access to those scripts, so I could be like, here's the script to Minsky. That's the closest you're ever gonna get.
I want it.
You're gonna email Sam Barlow himself, being like, can I just have the script, because we're big fans. We just wanna...
Sam, it's my birthday.
Sam, it's my birthday. So, like, the other one's bitch fit is so funny, especially because for the rest of the film, every time the one is trying to tell a story, he's like, this sucks. It's not working. They're monkeys flinging shit. What are you doing? He's just... And, you know, you could think of this, you know, if we take away the magical realism of it, you could interpret that the one is inspiration and passion, and the other one is the self-critic. That we are our own worst enemies, and we will kind of damn our own projects because we ourselves cannot get over the hurdle that we might actually be good at what we're doing. Like, there's a way to interpret that, but, like, as ghosts, it's like, yeah, everything that the one is setting out to do inherently fails because the other one's a fucking dick. And that he wants everything to fail because he hates humanity, because he's mad that they didn't like the Passion of Christ, which is wrong.
Nobody has been wronger.
Go to Nigeria. Everybody, like, Nigeria, specifically, the naming conventions in Nigeria, there are so many biblical names. Like, God's Will is a very popular name in Nigeria. It's like, go to Ethiopia, which has the oldest Catholic churches. Like, literally, man, go anywhere.
Go anywhere.
Go to Italy. Go to Italy. You know how many Catholic churches are in Italy?
I beg you to look at the Vatican.
It's just, like, it's so frustrating. And I think the other one is also a representative of just the self-martyred Christian. Everyone's oppressing me. It's like, nobody's fucking oppressing you, bitch. That's how the other one comes off, where the one is like, no, we're having fun and we're doing all of these things, and they like the story and everything's going fine, and the other one's like, help, they're persecuting me. The other one, by the way, is confirmed to be the devil from the Bible. In one of the achievements, the one says the snake was the other one's idea. The other one, the first time we actually see the other one, is when in Ambrosio, the devil shows up, and in the inverted scenes, the other one is the devil. The devil, which is the only black actor in Ambrosio. I didn't know how to talk about the race, because it's not really a focus. But I will say that, like, Sam Barlow's representation of race is a representation of how the film industry handled race for those particular eras.
Mm-hmm.
So Ambrosio, a 60s movie, obviously the only black character is a bad guy.
The literal devil.
The literal devil. In the 70s, there is one person of color, and she's the sidekick. She is the token Asian girl.
Also, Ruby is such a stereotypical Asian
name. Yeah, it's given like, oh, we want her to be exotic. Just say you're racist. Name her Jade. Like. And then, only in the 90s do we actually get, like, more than one person of color in the film. Mm-hmm. There's two.
Also, let me just say, for our audio-focused podcast, that I am Chinese. Let me make that very clear. I am a Chinese American person, so I can say what is an Asian name and what is not.
Yeah.
Okay, I made that disclaimer.
Yeah.
I just thought about that.
I'm white, so I can't.
You can laugh about it with me.
Yeah, my name's Aaron. Doesn't get any fucking whiter than that. And then in Two of Everything, there's two people of color. I know one of the actors is black, and I think that's the agent, and then the other one is the boyfriend, and I don't know what his ethnicity is. I think he's black, but I can't say for sure.
He's not white.
He's not white. But, even though there's two, people of color, they're both men, so no women of color, of course. Of course, the only woman of color that is, like, a casted actress is, like, someone who is a sidekick who was supposed to be, like, a love interest at one point, and that got scrapped.
Yeah.
Like,
typical.
They're also the boyfriend and the agent in Two of Everything, which is the third film. They're terrible people. So again, we're not really... The best representation, I feel, is Ruby. And she's barely there.
I know. I wanted so much more of Ruby.
But, now you might be wondering, well, that sucks. This is a very white game. It's not. Everybody in the film, like the film crew, most of them are people of color. Mm-hmm. And
no, there's another in Minsky.
Was the cop Italian?
No, it's the photographer. The photographer?
Yeah, but she doesn't have a line of dialogue. She's just in that one scene where she goes click. I'm thinking of, like, named characters.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. But you're right, though. There is another one. But again, like, an unnamed character, like,
with no dialogue.
With no dialogue. But Sam Barlow did not use... Because, again, he could have used this as an excuse to hire predominantly a white cast. Like, he could have gotten away with it, but all of the crew members are mostly people of color. In the Minsky, I looked at the IMDb page. Each of these have fake IMDb pages, and it's so funny. All of the top billed people in the crew, on the IMDb page, they're all people of color. Like, every single one of them. So I don't know how to talk about race because I'm a white woman, but I can at least appreciate my observations, which is the people of color cast as actors is accurate to the times, but Sam Barlow didn't use that as an excuse to only preferentially hire white people. There's a lot of people of color in the entirety of the making of the entire game. He's very meticulous in his research. He's very caring. He's very intentional, and I love him. And I can't wait until we get to Two of Everything, where we get to talk about the camera guy.
Too much of everything.
But yeah, so, tangent, but the only black guy in the 60s movies is the literal fucking devil. When we think of just the race of Ambrosio, it's so classic, the racism, because they hire two Italian women to be Spanish women in the film. that are named characters, and that is Sofia Morgana and Elvira's actress. They are Italian women. I mean, Sophia's actress, the layers.
Mm-hmm.
Antonia, who is Sophia, who is the actress, she has, I heard her speak, she doesn't really have a very strong Italian accent, but she was talking about, like, when I got the script and I did an Italian accent, she was like, oh, jeez, yeah. But, like, everyone else in that film are white.
Yeah.
The two main leads are unabashedly white characters.
They're very pale.
Marissa Marcel is a French woman who's also a redhead. Like, you can't get any pastier than that. And, like,
genetically speaking.
Yeah, and Robert, who plays Ambrosio, he looks like white Jesus. I don't know how else to describe him. He looks like a white Jesus. He looks like my cousin Vince.
Oh, another weird thing on, like, the topic of race and Ambrosio is in Sofia Morgana's audition, she's like, I'm half Italian and half German. And Arthur Fisher's like, oh, you're a marvelous crossbreed.
Ugh.
Gross. Gross. Never refer to people like they're dogs.
I need a restraining order out against Arthur Fisher. I know he's not a real man, but I want it.
I need to be kept 100 feet away from Arthur Fisher at all times.
He should not be allowed within 500 feet of a school. Like, dog, like, come on.
Welcome back to the Arthur Fisher Hate Podcast.
Right? I don't think there's much. I mean, and then all of the background characters of the film Ambrosio, they're all, like, Italians playing Spaniards.
Yeah.
Which is like, why didn't you just film it in Spain? Like, why confuse me?
Well, I think maybe Gio has something to do with that.
Oh yeah, because he's Italian.
Yeah.
I also wonder if it's like a reference to like the 1968 or whatever's Romeo and Juliet, which was also filmed in, I think, Italy, because there were laxer laws about children and nudity.
Ugh. That's like when weebs make the excuse of, like, sexualizing high schoolers.
Because, like, the age of consent in Japan's, like, 16.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's so gross.
It's so gross.
The other one is the devil. And so that's why I think that in biblical, when he reappears, he always is kind of the villain. And he's either the villain or he possesses people in order to punish the one. Like, that is, because I guess, Judas is the villain, but Judas was also Jesus' friend, and in the second movie, he possesses the co-star, and he's kind of Marissa's friend and lover, and so that's a very Judas-Jesus relationship that the two of them have, although there's a lot more sex and seduction going on.
Says you.
When we think of that in, again, Immortality is a retelling of biblical canon, that the one is God, and all creatures of God, and then the other one appears to be sort of the adversary.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just mean. Constantly. Again, he fucking hates the one and her ideas, and it makes sense, especially because, like, when I think back to the Garden of Eden, again, I'm not a fundamentalist, so I interpret things from the Bible. That story always reads to me like the dangers of charismatic men, and the way that they can lure innocent, often women, away, and they don't realize what's going on until it's too late. Mm. Like, when I think of my relationship with my last ex, I think of the fucking Garden of Eden, because it's, something that my mom always said growing up is that Lucifer is gorgeous. That Lucifer is beautiful, and that he is not this, like, scary man. He is going to be someone that you would never suspect. And, and you think of the Garden of Eden, when the snake comes in and is like, oh, eat this, why listen to God, and blah, 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 and a lot of people blame Eve. But if you've never been in a manipulative, terrible, toxic relationship like that, you're not going to understand why Eve is the victim. But once you've been into it, you're like, oh, yeah, because I'm saying manipulative men, but I should say manipulative people. they can convince you of anything because it's time. It wears you down. When someone says something about you long enough, eventually you might start believing that it's true. Because you will start forgetting yourself. And so, like, of course Eve gets tricked. Because she doesn't have the capacity to know about sin. Because she didn't eat from the fruit of knowledge, right? She doesn't understand deception. She doesn't understand that she is being tricked, and that's what manipulative and toxic men do. You know, when you wonder, like, oh, why don't women just leave? Why don't they get out of those relationships? They don't know that they're being abused, because to them, it's a dream. When I broke up with my boyfriend or my ex, and I thought a lot about our relationship, I was willing to compromise on so much stuff because I loved him. It never occurred to me that he was making these demands because he hated me. And so the other one feels like that, where he wants to control the one, and he wants her to do it his way because he thinks he's like every Chad who's like, I wrote this great movie, and then I told the idea to some guy at the bar, and now this movie's getting made. He stole my idea. Yeah. That's like the energy of the one, where he wants everything to... I assume that he really identifies with, like, Arthur Fisher. And he just belittles everything that the one does, and I think that he is less powerful than her because he wants to control her. Yeah. And in the end, in a very Judas Jesus kind of way, when the one is gone, he kind of mourns it, and it's like, what did you think was going to happen? This, because this happened... I mean, the one and the other one have been doing this allegedly since the dawn of time. But for just the film, they've been doing this for 3 decades. What did you think was going to happen? Yeah. Like, you're upset that you've lost your partner? Read the fucking room. You were the bad guy. No, the other, two bad guys. The other one, John Durick. The one is a problematic faith. I support women's rights. I support women's wrongs. What do you think about the one and the other one?
See, when we played through that, I didn't read that at all. I read more of, how do I put this in non-anime terms? It read this relationship that, like, the one was, obviously the one was the lover of humanity, was, like, looking at all, what all of this is. And the other one was like, no, they're monkeys flinging shit. Like, they didn't like the greatest story that we could possibly give them. But they were still going along with what the one wanted to do. Yeah. So it felt more of, like, not apathy. Apathy is the wrong word.
Contempt?
Yeah. Contempt for, like, I guess this is what we're doing now. I guess we're making movies. Like, yeah. Because especially in Two of Everything, when I don't know how much of Two of Everything I want to give away. In, like, the scene that finishes the game. Yeah. There's no way that the other one would try to take care of the one seemingly. Yeah. If it was, like, privately an abusive relationship.
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends, because, like, I remember when I broke up with my ex that he was crying and he said that he loved me after he broke up with me. So, like, and then, after that, he kind of flipped his switch and went right on. He showed his true colors after that, but that first night was so bizarre. It's not the first time that I've actually had that experience where being broken up with somebody and they're like, I love you. I'm like, you don't. You're breaking up with me.
My ex did that too.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing that men are like, oh, I still love you. It's like, no, you fucking don't. Like,
Because if you still loved me, then we would be able to figure this out.
Yeah, it's like, you clearly don't. So, like, and something that happened with my ex is that people wanted to comfort him for breaking up with me. My abuser was being comforted after he broke up with me. And only one person didn't understand, because he was like, don't you comfort the person who got broken up with?
Yeah.
And he was the only one who, like, checked in to make sure, like, I didn't kill myself. He was making sure that I ate. He was the one who kind of sat down and was like, hey, Aaron, I think you were being abused. Because I burst out into tears and was like, I don't understand what I did wrong to get broken up with. Part of my recovery process was just like, he hated me, and I don't know why he stayed with me when he hated me, but in the wake of the breakup, it was weirdly gentle. And he was very sad about it. And so maybe there's regret. Because, like, there's also the final scene with the fire, which feels vicious. Versus the scene at the bar.
Well, I read the fire scene as, like, a burial.
Yeah, because, like, fire is supposed to be permanent.
Right, yeah, so I didn't see it necessarily as, like, a vicious thing, but like a respect thing.
That's interesting. We got some different takes. What?
I don't know if I should say it.
What?
Can we cut it if you don't like it?
Sure.
Is it because you were abused?
It might be because I was abused, yeah. That I see... Well, because I didn't see the story of, like, Adam and Eve and, like, Satan as a story about manipulative and abusive people until after...
Yeah.
Because it colorizes everything about you. You see charisma, and you feel immediately threatened. Anybody who seems so sure of themselves, you get so worried, because those are the people that tend to be monsters in the closets. Confidence is sexy, yes. But after being abused, confidence can be fucking terrifying, because you really don't know who you're dating until you are at a point of almost no return. And it's scary. And that's a lot of risk. But yeah, I would say that I kind of see them as abusive, because I can see...
Pattern.
I can see the way that the way that the other one talks to the one is the way that my ex talked to me. Especially, the scene that we keep referencing. When we say monkeys flinging shit, we are directly quoting the other one. He says that. When the one is like, humanity's great, and I have these opinions, and la 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 la, and he's like, you're fucking stupid. That reminds me of when, I mentioned it earlier. I told my ex that I thought Romeo and Juliet was Shakespeare's dumbest play, and it was fucking stupid, and he screamed at me for being an idiot.
It is his dumbest play.
He's like, you just don't understand. It's supposed to be ironic. It's a commentary about, the way that young women this and blah, 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 and all that. And I was like, alright, I could just think it's fucking dumb. Like, part of why I think it's fucking dumb is because people think that it's such a great love story. That's the effect that it's had on people and on culture, is that, it's like the pinnacle of romance. And it's like, Orpheus and Eurydice is right here.
Facts.
You have a much kinder depiction of the other one.
Yeah, I do, and I don't know why. Because, when you point it out, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, but I can also see, your point of view of just, they are kind of, these... That he's almost, treating her like a child. And that he's begrudgingly going with it, and that, maybe... Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy where he's like, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. And then when it fails, he's like, well, I told you, but he still takes care of her. But the question is did it not work because the other one was right, or did it not work because the other one set up a self-fulfilling prophecy and set the one up for failure?
That's why, this is, why I like this game. That's why I like Don't Worry, Darling, because it's
there's so much to talk about.
There's so much. I just, yeah. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to point out your traumas like that.
No, I mean, I brought him up earlier, and I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, my last relationship with my ex very much characterizes a lot of how I carry myself in the modern day.
Yeah.
It was one of the most significant things to happen to me. At least you're not asking me, why do you keep bringing him up?
I would never do that.
Yeah, it's like,
I would never do
it's
that.
like, because he traumatized me, and now I have to, like, protect myself against men like him.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you know how terrifying it is to know that you can still fail? Because here's the thing, I'm gonna trauma dump on all of you right now, all 17 of you. I broke up with this guy. And then someone came into my life wanting to be my best friend, and then he treated me just like my ex. I became an object of this friend's affections, and when I would not play the role that he wanted me to play, he cut me out of his life and never looked back. So it's like, yeah, it's terrifying to, like, have this thing happen to you, to be in an abusive relationship and get out of it and think, this is never gonna happen to me ever again. I have learned, I am wise, I am okay, and then to get tossed right back into it. And I mean, like, my ex-friend did not abuse me. I would never say that he abused me. That is not what happened. No. But I, again, just became an object. I became an idea that when reality didn't meet the expectations of the idea, my friend lashed out, and the only person who got hurt was me. And then after that, I felt stupid. I felt stupid for trusting him. I felt stupid for believing him when he said he was never going to be like the people who had come before in my life. He made all of these promises and went back on every single one, and it was just, it's frustrating. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe I am a little hyper fucking vigilant.
Yeah. Because I would say, like, my ex never abused. I would never say that. But he did treat me like an idea. Yeah. And also, side note, he did have yellow fever and not admit to it. So, there's that.
For those who don't know what yellow fever is.
Yellow fever is the phenomena that a person objectifies Asian people in a sexual manner, and they, like, treat it as, like, a preference. Yeah. If anybody, to all my Asian girlies out there, if anybody says that them liking Asians is a preference, you get the fuck out. Yeah. You run for the hills and never look back. Because they are not going to treat you like anything else except for an aesthetic. You are an aesthetic to them. Don't do it. Yeah. Do not be an aesthetic.
Because people with preferences compromise on those preferences. Because they're just preferences. Yeah. Like, I have favorite hair colors that I feel in, you know, the people, I'm bisexual, so they're just the people that I'm attracted to. I have hair preferences, I have body type preferences, I have all of these preferences, but I don't think I have dated a single man that has ever had, like, my hair preference.
Yeah. Like, I never thought that I would date somebody with, like, who identified as a man with long hair. Yeah. Because I had, up until this point, always been attracted to men with short hair. Yeah. My boyfriend also looks like white Jesus.
He does.
He does look like white Jesus.
I love my boyfriend so much. He bought me, okay, I know I've been talking about how I was abused. Guys, I'm fine. I literally told my boyfriend, like, last week that I was thinking about getting a yarn winder because my yarn stash is out of control, and he Venmo'd me the money for it. So, you might feel bad that I have been through the fucking ringer. You can feel bad, but I'm okay now.
We've had bad past, but we're okay now.
Yeah!
Truly. Truly, we're okay.
We're good. We don't need to blink. We don't need to wear purple to indicate you. We need help.
I was laying on this here very couch that we're sitting on, and I was crying to my boyfriend about how I wanted steak, and he Venmo'd me $20 so that I could buy myself and make myself a steak because he was too far away.
Oh my god. Men who treat us like people.
Oh, great.
This
is
is
so great.
It's so great. I feel like some of our D&D, I feel like some of our podcasts end up being therapy sessions. We're just talking about this and how it affects our real life. Because, like, I mean, I think that's the important things about the way, especially because a lot of times when we're talking about fictional stories, and the importance of stories is the way that we identify with them.
That's the only way that I consume media, is I'm just like, oh, this can apply to a real life situation.
Yeah, there's like, I have, in my head, there's like 2 lists of characters, and they're fictional characters, well, I guess 3. There's like fictional characters I want to fuck, and they're all monsters.
Not surprising.
Look, Heather and Alejandro from Total Drama World Tour were a formative part of my youth. Alejandro is so fucking hot, and so is Heather, and they're awful. Anyways. And then there's characters I like, and then there are characters that I identify with, and they're all fucking sad. 'Cause it's like, part of the reason why I really hate Frozen, this is a secret, I'm gonna come out with this secret, I'm gonna have to, my sister, I'm sorry, that now I gotta be honest.
It's Aaron's honesty hour.
I hate Frozen, because everything was made about Elsa, and I really identified with Anna. I saw so much of myself in Anna, and it made me so fucking mad that everyone cared about Elsa. It pissed me off so much. Because in my own growing up, a lot of ways that I've described myself is that I've always felt like a ghost, and everyone has always focused on everybody else, and I have never really been in the limelight. I feel like I raised myself. I feel like I was raised by a city.
How very glass child of you.
Right? But yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that Frozen is a shitty movie narrative-wise, both of the films are bad films. Like, I just got so mad because I was like, I really identified with Anna, and nobody fucking cares about Anna. For Immortality, part of why I love Immortality is because I really identify with the one, which again is why I'm like, is the one good or bad? I don't really know. Can she do no wrong? Kind of. But I also really identify with, again, like, Agnes, and a little bit of Marissa's character. I identify with Marissa kind of in the beginning, where she's just, like, the innocent and then corrupted, but obviously, like, it stops becoming once she herself becomes the groomer, because she does. Poor Carl. Oh my god. But I think, honestly, and this is sort of the genius of Immortality and stories like Immortality, is that, like, and the importance of storytelling itself, which is why we should all be against AI, is because, like, this story allows us to really examine ourselves. You don't see the other one and the one as this horrifyingly abusive relationship in the way that I do, and it says a lot about my life, and it says a lot about yours, and we can kind of, like, examine that. And, like, also, stories like this can also, when you are struggling, TM, to get people to empathize with you, again, oh no, we were talking about this before the podcast, where I was like, some people just don't fucking know how to do empathy, and however they get there is however they get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, I can show people things like this, and be like, if you want to know what it was like, read this book. Read this book, play this game. When I had there's this book I really like called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is, I feel I identify it with a lot because it's about an abusive relationship. I had my brother read it because usually if it's fantasy stuff and it's got some interesting world building, I typically was like, hey, read this. And he was like, it's a romance novel. He's like, it wasn't really my thing. And I had this really long discussion about him where I was, like, talking about it, and then I literally said, I was like, this is what it was like to date my ex. And he was like, I see. And so I was like, yeah, like, these are books. Like, I have a list of books. It's called Books for Catharsis. It's this list, and it's a book where I really hard identify with these people, and it's like, if you want to know what it is like to experience Aaron, these are the books I would tell you to read.
Mhm.
And that's, again, Immortality is another one of those where it's like, yeah, this is a great way to depict just women, abusive relationships. There's a lot of interpretation. Ambrosio specifically, has an interesting thing in the way that it describes something. The one last thing that I can think of that I want to talk about Ambrosio is Agnes. There's a scene where Agnes is holed up in St. Clair's crypt. And we talked about this a couple of times when we were seeing this, that it reminded me of the Vestal Virgins. So, if you don't know, the Vestal Virgins, the cult of Vesta, which was in ancient Rome, these were these virgins who were sort of icons of the goddess Vesta, and they had to remain virgins during their entire internment as the Vestal Virgin, and if they broke that vow, they would be buried alive.
Terrifying.
Oh yeah. There's a historical guy on TikTok who knows a lot about history, and his girlfriend asks him crazy questions, and she was like, if you could sleep with two historical people in history, who would you sleep with? And he was like, two Vestal Virgins. And I was like, you're doing what? He's like, and then he described it to her, and he's like, how many people could say that they slept with not one but two Vestal Virgins? I was like, bro. Because they're gonna get bricked alive. Yeah, they put them in a room, and then they brick the wall, they brick the door closed, and they let them there to perish. That's what happens to a Vestal Virgin when they break their vows. So it was interesting to see this idea that Agnes, who committed a sin by having sex, even...
That doesn't give what I think he wanted it to give.
And I was like, I don't think you... It's
that doesn't... that gives icky.
Yeah.
That gives really icky.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a hypothetical, so, yeah. I can live with it. I don't think that he's, a bad person or anything like that. But it was just dude, Vestal Virgins? Come on, man. Sleep with Catherine the Great.
Yeah.
Everyone was.
Yeah. That's funny.
Oh my goodness. But in Ambrosio, I think it's this really interesting parallel that it feels like when I saw it, I was like, wow, this reminds me of what the Catholic Church would consider a pagan ritual. Anything that was not Christian was just considered pagan, which is dumb and stupid. And it makes it really hard to do any meaningful research because everything is paganism, and it makes me want to... Anyways. So it was interesting that when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is imagery that really reminds me of Vestal Virgins. But it's the opposite, she's being locked, well, I mean, not really, she's being locked in because, she had sex, and she was pregnant, and they were gonna lock her in and let her die, and it's just kind of, sad, but also sort of a mirror. And then in terms of, Catholic theology, it is a direct inversion into an anchoress. Do you know what an anchor... No, you don't.
No, I don't. I don't know anything.
Anchoresses are truly, to me, women, I'm gonna say this to you, and it's gonna sound like a fucking horror story, because it kind of is, but at the same time, when you think about pre-modern Europe, and the fact that women, we talked about how, if you have an orgasm during sexual assault, it's not sexual assault. Keep those ideas in mind about women and sex when I tell you what an anchoress is. So an anchoress is kind of like a nun. She's a religious leader, and they're always female. And what happens is when she takes her vocation as an anchoress, she goes into the basically the anchor, and they let her in, and then they wall her in. And she's there for the rest of her life. And she has these windows, and ways to pass food and other things in. And she acts as a spiritual guidance, so people will come up to her window and ask the anchoress for advice and things like that. Anchoress, obviously the word anchor, she is literally anchored in. Mm-hmm. And it is just another option for women. Again, second option is sort of a religious life for these women. And again, that sounds fucking horrifying. But if you're a woman, if I was in the Middle Ages, I would be an anchoress. I'm so scared of being sexually assaulted. You're telling me that there is an option where I can just, like, be literate, hang out with God, which, you know, back then, which was the only thing to do, only guy around. So I could be literate, hang out with God, give advice to people, and men could not touch me. That seems like the safest option. Remember when our friend was horrified when we were like, if they did Don't Worry Darling, but with consent, we would participate?
Yeah.
And he was horrified, and it's like, do you not understand that we would be safe? There's no want for money. All we have to do is, like, we can take care of the home. You know, and Don't Worry Darling, it's, like, 50s inspired, but, like, with the idea of consent, women would be able to, like, do whatever they want, because, like, the women in Victory do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So there's, like, a lot more agency. Like, there's a scene where Bunny pulls off the bra. You'd never be able to do that in the 50s. She'd literally be arrested for indecent exposure if a cop was rolling around at that time.
Yeah.
And our friend was horrified, and it's like, you don't understand how scary it is in the world for being a woman. That sounds like a dream because it gets rid of everything that a woman is afraid of.
Aaron, women aren't monoliths.
I am.
I am a monolith.
I am a monolith. It's just, I can understand why anchoresses exist. I can understand why they would do that. I would feel terrible for, like, an anchoress who didn't want to go in. There's, like, anchoresses who have escaped their, lifestyle. There's, like, a famous one who, like, went because, like, her kid was dying, and then she just never went back. So, like, again, with every system, there are people who get abused by it and people who abuse it. But when I think of the context of the medieval age, I think I would end up as an anchoress. I feel like you would be burned at the stake.
Yes, exactly.
Emily wouldn't survive the Middle Ages.
No, not at all. I am made for exactly this century.
Me too.
I am never a person that'll be like, oh, I was born in the wrong time. No. I am meant to be here, and I am meant to be now.
Yeah. I was like, I like my technology. I like being able to play games like Immortality, and
I am meant for nowhere else.
Yeah,
no when else.
You're meant in the era where you can watch 1,000 episodes of One Piece.
Yes, I am put on this earth for very few things. One of them is One Piece. One of them is to waste my money. And one of them is to love my boyfriend. Those are the three things that I am put on this world to do.
Oh, look at your character growth. You didn't even mention Nick Kroll.
I'm done. I quit the podcast.
Alright, that's all we have today for the Feminine Bite. We are just spinning our wheels now.
We're just talking now. We're just hanging out. And the microphone is on.
Isn't that what a podcast is?
Yeah. We had more structure at the beginning of this.
We did.
Where are we at?
4 hours?
3:23.
Yeah! So, this is Ambrosio. We hope that we've kind of set it up as best as you can. You can play this game on Netflix. You can get it on Steam. It's not very expensive because it's an indie game. We highly recommend it. If you want some other context, you can watch the Gentleman Gaming Club episode on Immortality. Then there's also, I'm not going to say his name fast because I understand what the fucking joke is, and I'm not going to do it. His username is Flawed Peacock, and he does like a 10-hour video on Immortality, and he goes frame by frame. Like, he goes video by video.
That's a lot.
Yeah, like, I wish that could be me, but it's not me. So if you want more information, there's also, you can watch just smash cuts of all of the scenes on YouTube. We'll put a link to where those are in the bio if you just want to watch all of the scenes in chronological order and you don't want to suffer like us, because when you're playing the game, you could click on a scene in Ambrosio and end up in Minsky, and then click on Minsky and end up in Two of Everything, and then just go through all of it. Like, it's a very asynchronous way of telling the story, and that's the complicated part, but the YouTube smash cuts are all in chronological order, and they're organized by movie, so if you don't want the confusing journey. You can take the straight and narrow. You can be boring. We're not gonna tell anybody.
I do like the straight and narrow.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I was like, I'm gonna give you a video that you can watch that's like easy 40 minutes.
I mean, the game is fun to play because you don't know where you're gonna end up.
Yeah.
But, like, to actually fundamentally understand this game, I did like the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Like, so those are the places where you can find the game to play or watch yourself. And we will be coming out to you with the next episode where we will be discussing the second film, which is Emily's favorite.
Oh my god, I love Minsky.
Which is Minsky.
Oh my god, I want Minsky to be real.
Good night, guys.
Why isn't Minsky real? Do you remember the scene where Marissa in Ambrosio's like laying in the bed and the blanket's like up here?
Yeah.
There's an inverted scene of the one laying the exact same way. And she talks about this painting called The Sleeping Girl by Balthus.
Yeah.
So I looked into it.
Okay.
Not that far, because there's honestly not a lot about this painting.
Okay.
But I want to read you the Google description of Balthus to tell you how fucking insane this is.
Okay.
Because the painting itself is so similar to how Marissa and the one are laying. Like, I will show you.
Hold on, I'll Google The Sleeping Girl. Oh yeah, okay, it's a clear illusion.
Yes. So the description for Balthus on Google is he was a Polish-French modern artist. He is known for his erotically charged images of prepubescent girls, and also for the refined, dreamlike quality of his imagery. Throughout his career, Balthus rejected the usual conventions of the art world. And then the one makes a comment about how The Sleeping Girl is his best painting.
And it's like the only one where it's just a girl sleeping.
Yeah. Because all the other ones, all of his other paintings are like girls, like with their legs up, their skirts are like in their thigh, and their stockings are at their knees.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I'm like, eee.
Sam Barlow is a fucking genius.
Eee.
Every reference that he makes, everything that he does is so intentional. Every illusion he makes, just as just a writer, I'm so fucking impressed.
Yeah.
I'm working on this piece of autofiction. For those who don't know, autofiction is like the love child between nonfiction and fiction. It's a way to tell like autobiographical stories in a fictitious way to add like theme.
Yeah.
So I'm writing this autofiction piece, and there's like a couple of illusions in there, and you know, I'm very careful about what the illusions are because I want them to connect to the themes the same way that, you know, everything that Sam Barlow puts on is connecting them. And, you know, I trauma dumped a lot on this particular episode, so I feel like I don't have to play a lot of catch up. That abuse and manipulation and trickery is like kind of iconic to my life story, and so this story opens up as a book club. And they're talking about, like, the book Carrie, because one of the characters is named Carrie. And it's a direct allusion to one of the openings to the season of Lost, where they're opening up this character named Juliet's book club, and she talks about how Carrie is her favorite book and everyone hates her for it, and Juliet's whole fucking character is that she got tricked by a manipulative asshole onto that island, and she's trapped and miserable. And so, like, you know, when you do illusions, right, sometimes they do illusions and they're actually just like, you know, pop culture references or Easter eggs and illusions are kind of all in the same tree. And like pop culture references can be interesting, Easter eggs can sometimes be quite cringe. And a lot of people sometimes they just do it very heavy-handedly and it's not fun. Like, every, like, one-note forgettable indie game makes a reference to, like, don't go alone, take this.
Yeah.
Like every forgettable indie game does it. Like, it's just something that happens. So when you do allusions and pop culture references and Easter eggs, you want everything to feel intentional, and these allusions and pop culture references and Easter eggs need to connect to the theme. And so, like, this painting, just like, which is a one-note thing, never comes up again.
No.
Directly connects to these themes about sexualizing minors, which is what the first film is really dissecting, is this sexualization of minors, which is, it's so impressive.
I was, like, reading that, I'm like, oh. I half anticipating for you to find it, that little bit.
I saw it, and here's the thing, I was really on the Saints angle. I got distracted by all the Saints.
I got distracted by mentions of art.
Yeah. Our priorities are as straight as us, it seems.
The joke is that we're not straight. You know what? That's gonna be my second for today. We're gonna shot of Aaron recording. We're not straight. And that's my second. Yay!
It's just the deadpan. The joke is that we're not straight. Just in case anybody didn't know.
Just in case.
We're facts.
We had too much talk about our boyfriends. I had to clarify.
Yeah, I love my boyfriend in a very bisexual way.
Yeah, we have very bisexual relationships.
Oh my god. I am not cutting any of that out.
Okay.